Chapter 2950 Opening of the Sarcophagus. Chapter 2950 Opening of the Sarcophagus. 10,000 beasts wailed, and all was in a downturn. It felt like the end of the world. In the valley, those disciples of magic sect were also nervous as fear rose in their hearts. Big brother, there's movement underground. Could it be? Purple Devil Lord's eyes darkened. Looking at the ground, he naturally thought of the ancient giant demons under the seal. The great demon's eyes darkened, and said faintly, "If it's true, then that means the Genshulong sword have already left this seal valley. Did that kid really escape? That's impossible, unless he cultivates a spatial movement cultivation technique or a divine treasure. But it is impossible for a mere Xianwu pavilion to possess such a heaven-defying treasure." Purple Devil Lord frowned. He didn't think much about it. Since he had already found Xianwu Pavilion, he would get his revenge sooner or later. "Big brother, what do we do now?" The demon shook his head. "I don't know. Our mission is only to bring the Genshulong sword away. Now that the dragon sword has left, our mission is complete." However, the great demon thought for a moment and swept his gaze across the valley, saying, "Get people to retreat from the valley and keep a safe distance. We'll see if the ancient giant demon really has breaking through the seal." Immediately, disciples of magic sect quickly retreated. He concealed himself deep underground. When the gates of hell opened, no monstrous blood gushed out or demons gushed out. Everything returned to normal at that instant. The tremors disappeared. The demon beast on the ground had also recovered, and the startled flock of birds slowly descended. It was as if nothing had happened. The Genshulong sword flew back to Long Fei's side and said, "The stone door did not sense any special aura, so those demons should have all died of old age. After all, everything has its lifespan limit. Unlike me, it has become a weapon that guards the seal." There was a hint of loneliness in his voice. He was a holy dragon. Being refined into a Genshulong sword, he could last for tens of billions of years. In these long years, he missed the time when he had such a huge body. Of course, he didn't regret it. Long Fei asked, "Is there a way to help you recover?" The Genshulong sword was shocked for a moment, and said, "Yes there is, but it is too difficult, and it is good that we have become Genshulong sword now, at least we have returned to Master's side." Long Fei did not speak. He silently said to himself, "Let's find a chance to restore them in the future." As he stepped through the gates of hell, a gust of cold wind assaulted him. It sent chills down one's spine. Huff! Long Fei heaved a heavy sigh and stepped into the stone door. Inside the stone door, it was like a huge cave, with strange diagrams everywhere on the sides of the cave. None of them understood. The Genshulong sword also could not understand, and muttered, "What exactly are these diagrams?" Looked carefully at all the stars, dense clouds, unknown patterns, and domains. Each diagram slowly combined together, and Long Fei muttered, "This seems to be a nebula diagram." It was like the entire universe. Each star represents a great world. That kind of strange and dense cloud should be the unknown domain. Are those demons astronomers? Long Fei had doubts in his heart. The reason he guessed it was because of the nebula diagram was from the ancient times of science fiction movies. In this world, it could be said that even if he was the Emperor Xian, he wouldn't understand anyone. The Genshulong sword said, "Master, take a look at this drawing. What is this thread?" Long Fei shook his head, "I don't know." Suddenly, the Genshulong sword saw a slightly familiar place and said, "Master, this seems to be the ancient world." The dragon sword also came from the ancient world. He had some understanding of the ancient world. Although he couldn't confirm it, he felt that the diagram was very similar. Not only that, the straight line that had appeared from the beginning to this world had suddenly disappeared without being traversed. Long Fei was also slightly shocked. "Ancient world?" The Genshulong sword said, "Very similar, I dare not confirm." Long Fei stopped to carefully look at the pattern, and after pondering for a moment, he muttered to himself, "If this is really the ancient world, then the line that passed through the entire universe to this point, is it because they were trapped by the seal? Black and white. Come out. You stopped their destruction, didn't you? But why do you say you failed again? Didn't you succeed?" Long Fei asked. Black and White did not respond. Long Fei disdained, "Damn, you're not giving me any face at all." Something that Black and White did not want to talk about. Even if Long Fei were to kneel down, he would still not be able to ask. He continued to walk forward. The pattern was not that clear. It was even very blurry. Many of them were in the unknown domain. However, the last image was very clear. It depicted the shape of a huge sun. The whole picture is a sun. There was nothing around him. There were no stars, no clouds, just a huge sun. In the center of the sun was an ancient word, life. Destiny. It was a very strange word. Was this sun the largest world in the universe? Life realm? Never heard of it. Or could it be that these demons had spent billions of years scribbling life all over the place, and the word life in the sun was written all over the place? Long Fei couldn't understand. Towards this kind of matter, Long Fei would normally not bother thinking about it. After walking through the last diagram, Long Fei also arrived at the deepest part. It was also the most spacious place. It was like a grand hall, with a seat at the very top. There was nothing else, no demons. The Genshulong sword let out a long breath, and said, "Looks like they really all died of old age, turning into ashes." Long Fei swept his gaze across the entire arena and the idea moved. It couldn't feel the existence of anything and relaxed a little as it muttered, "It should be so. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have a skeleton left behind." This was the only explanation. Sigh. Nothing. It's a pity. Long Fei muttered in his heart. He was still thinking that there were treasures left behind by the primordial demons in the gates of hell, but they didn't even have skins. Just as Long Fei was relaxing his guard. Suddenly, a strange sound rang out. It did not come from this cave, but from Long Fei's space ring. A space ring directly flew out from Long Fei's body. Whoosh. The ring then fell down and exploded. Long Fei's eyes flashed. That coffin. The coffin held by the Azure Dragon Ancestral Master directly shattered the God's tribe's space ring with its support. In that instant, he landed in the high chair. Catcher. Huala, huala, huala. The mysterious coffin slowly opened by itself. Chapter 2951 18 Ancient Giant Demons. Chapter 2951 18 Ancient Giant Demons. Heaven, Earth. The huge sarcophagus had actually opened by itself. Long Fei's scalp tingled when he saw it. It was as if he had met with some sort of miracle. Furthermore, from the start, he knew that the sarcophagus was extremely dangerous, so he did not dare open it. It was a pity that now he opened it himself. Hualala. Hualala. The screeching sound of heavy stone slabs rubbing against each other could be heard. The Genshulong sword asked curiously, "Master, what is that?" Long Fei did not speak, because he did not know either. At a time like this, it was best not to speak. Long Fei stared at the sarcophagus and thought, "What exactly do you want to do?" Buzz. The sarcophagus stopped midway. And then, a stream of cold air emerged from the sarcophagus, as if a person had just exhaled. It was a place like this, where one could easily lose his or her life. Long Fei's palms were drenched in cold sweat as he muttered, "Could it really be that a person is lying inside? Billions of years of zombies?" This was because this coffin had been obtained from the body of the Azure Dragon Sacred Ancestral. The Azure Dragon Sacred Ancestral was a dragon that had existed for a very long time in the ancient world. Long Fei became cautious and replied faintly, "Be careful." The Genshulong sword immediately took a defensive stance. He exhaled a breath of white air. Suddenly, a hand rested on the side of the coffin. Long Fei's pupils contracted slightly, and he exclaimed in a deep voice, "The F***CK, he wants to swindle a corpse." One hand. His hand was just like a normal person's, it had flesh and blood on it, yet it did not decay at all. It was in a very strange state. A hand rested on the edge of the coffin. White air kept emitting out, as if it hadn't been breathed for tens of thousands of years. Phew, phew, phew. The sound of breathing was exceptionally clear in the spacious and empty hall. Half a minute passed. This time was an extremely long process for Long Fei. The Genshulong sword could not sit still, and said, "Master, I'll go take a look. Without waiting for Long Fei to stop them, the Genshulong sword flew over. The Genshulong sword moved and instantly landed on the coffin. Looking at the scene inside the coffin, he subconsciously looked towards Long Fei, and then, he looked at the scene inside the coffin again. He couldn't say a word. He looked at Long Fei, then at the inside of the coffin. The Genshulong sword was completely stupefied. As he was speaking, suddenly, the hand that was placed beside the coffin suddenly turned into a palm, and his 5 fingers made a grasping motion in the air. His palm faced towards Long Fei. In that moment, the Genshulong sword was shocked and instantly warned, "Master, be careful." Before he could return to Long Fei's side, he was sent flying by an extremely strong force. The Genshulong sword that was floating in mid-air directly fell to the ground, as though it had fallen unconscious. It was also at this time that Long Fei felt a wave of power that he had never felt before pouncing towards him. It was incomparably huge. His blood essence, his organs, and even his soul seemed to be on the verge of being sucked away. He couldn't bear it. Long Fei's body sank. With a twitch of his right hand, he took out the heavy sword and heavily stabbed it into the ground. With the movement of the idea, the universal soul instantly transformed into energy. Buzz. His true soul instantly burst forth as well. However, even so, Long Fei was still unable to resist, and his body started to float like a rag. F***ck me. What's going on? Long Fei's heart tightened, thinking of the Genshulong sword's stupefied expression. He could not help but ask in his heart, could it be that the ground is really a human? Without waiting for Long Fei's reply, the hand on the coffin tightened slightly. Long Fei's body was about to fly up. However, at this moment, behind Long Fei, a loud explosion could be heard from within the huge fog pattern. Roar! Next, a powerful force struck him like lightning. Long Fei tensed up and turned to take a look. In that moment, he almost peed his pants. Behind him, there were a total of 18 of them that stood there. There were bodies that were like humans, and also bodies that were like monsters. They were all sorts of strange, but one point that didn't belong to universal realm at all was their aura. Their eyes were filled with a sense of superiority, as if they were gods. Actually, in their world, they were gods. Other than that, there was another thing they had in common, which was that they were scrawny. The heck? Long Fei's scalp went numb. Looking at the 18 ancient giant demons, he was completely speechless. Millions of years. What kind of concept was this? These people were too abnormal. Roar! 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 Waves of whooshing sounds rang out, as if they were speaking in their own language. Next, the 18 giant demon figures suddenly changed into a ball of black fog and crazily charged toward the sarcophagus. At this moment, the powerful suction force stopped. Long Fei stood still and looked at the sarcophagus. Bam! 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 A black mist rushed down. After the last wisp of black mist entered the coffin, the entire coffin closed up. Then, the entire coffin floated into the air. Rumble! 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 It was as if a great war was happening inside the coffin. Explosions were constantly heard. Long Fei looked at the coffins that were flying in his direction, as if he was watching a fight between gods. He had no idea what was going on inside. It was unknown whether the person in the coffin had been ganged up on, or if he had ganged up on those 18 huge demons. The only pity was that the experience points of these primordial giants. They were all old freaks who had lived for over 1 trillion years. The experience of these freaks would be worth a few 100 billion a year, directly leveling up to the realm of the Great Master. Sigh. What a pity. Long Fei sighed in his heart. After about half an hour, boom! The sarcophagus fell from the sky and directly crushed the stone chair into pieces. The entire cave trembled. Everything returned to calm. He won. He still lost. Long Fei took a step forward as he looked at the sarcophagus. At this time, the sarcophagus suddenly opened halfway. He spat out a mouthful of black air. Then there was a burp. Bam! The sarcophagus closed again. Holy **T. Eat them all? This guy. Eat up all 18 ancient giant demons. An ancient giant demon monster? I'm afraid it's not even 1 in 10,000. Long Fei muttered. However, it was also at this time. Long Fei's right arm suddenly burned with an excruciating pain. His body sank, and all the clothes on his right arm were instantly burnt clean, and lines of fiery lines appeared on his arm, as if he was tattooing. You can't feel any pain from this tattoo, and it's completely out of Long Fei's control. Chapter 2952, The Great Master Set. Chapter 2952, The Great Master Set. It happened out of nowhere. There was no sign. Long Fei had no way of reacting at all. He watched as the golden thread continuously swam around the back of his hand, like a golden metal wire, and passed by a scorching mark, like a rune. However, it was not a rune, so it was similar to the one on the dragon-shaped mark. Very special. Long Fei wanted to control it, but it was simply impossible. His idea was completely unable to stop it. Using his left hand to stop it would be the same as turning a blind eye to the golden thread. There was absolutely no power that could control it, so Long Fei could only watch as it continued to wrap around it. Draw bit by bit. They twined around each other. In the end, with the dragon-shaped mark as the center, he wrapped it around once and stopped at his shoulder. Buzz. A faint buzzing sound could be heard. Long Fei looked at his own arm and muttered, "What the fuck is this drawing?" It looked like a mech. It looked very much like a gauntlet or gauntlet that appeared in a game. Long Fei used his strength to feel it, but he did not feel any discomfort, nor did he feel any energy. It was just that it was a little painful when the golden metal wire was being coiled. After observing for a few minutes, the lines on his arm slowly disappeared and were hidden within his arm. At this moment, ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Big Master Guard Arm. Me! What the hell? How did a Big Master Guard Arm appear? Long Fei's doubts had not yet ended when the system sounded out once more. Ding! System notification. Player Long Fei's right arm has evolved. Evolution? What did I do to evolve your daddy's arm? Ah! Evolution? My arm evolved. What did it evolve into? Long Fei's mind was full of questions. He didn't do anything. After watching just one scene, the system beeped 2 times, leaving him completely stupefied. Instantly, Long Fei opened up the system to check. Item: Big Master Guard Arm Attribute. Defense. Attack. All of the attributes were question marks, there was no explanation. Long Fei immediately acted as if he was scolding someone. Then he looked at the description. Description: This gauntlet is unrivaled in the world. It has been refined from 18 ancient giant demons. If used properly, it can release the power of 18 ancient giant demons. Description 2, one of the Overlord set. Seeing the description in the system, Long Fei's 2 eyes remained unmoving, but the corners of his mouth slowly raised, and he started to laugh crazily again. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Awesome, my brother. An arm guard refined from the strength of 18 primordial giant demons, unparalleled in the world. And it's even a set. Is this for me to become the great master of primordial chaos? Ha ha ha. Long Fei was extremely excited. He had never thought of obtaining a sovereign-level holy artifact without doing anything. It could be said that this arm guard surpassed any existence of holy artifact. It was just that he could not take it out, otherwise Long Fei would really have to see how much its experience points was worth. The Great Master set. Heh. When Long Fei saw the Great Master, he couldn't help but think of a novel from his previous life. Awesome. But how do I release the power of the Big Master Guard Arm? Long Fei was suspicious. Looking at his own arm, he could not see anything. Even the lines were hidden and the idea could not sense it. It was as if he had seen a ghost. If it wasn't for the fact that he could see that the Big Master Guard Arm still existed, Long Fei would have really thought that this was something to tease him. He couldn't help it. Long Fei clenched his fists tightly. Boom. Suddenly, there was an explosive sound, and Long Fei's arm became like a star swordsman transforming, with a few catcher sounds coming from his arm. A whole 18. Thick pieces of metal seemed to emerge from his body and merge together. This feeling. It really did seem like he was transforming. Isn't this too overbearing? In just a few seconds, Long Fei's right arm became like a mechanical arm. It did not feel any weight, only an endless amount of power. It's about to be released. It's going to be released soon. If I can gather all of the sets, then lousy. The scene was too beautiful. Long Fei did not dare to think further. His right fist moved, and Long Fei smashed his fist against the stone wall. Bang! His strength was very heavy. But it was only a little stronger than before, but there were no special changes, and Long Fei also did not feel any changes from it. However, in the valley, rumble, rumble, rumble. The entire valley was cracking open, countless of cracks were opening up. The disciples of Magic Sect who were hiding outside the valley were all so scared that their faces turned pale, not daring to even breathe. Are they coming out? Are they really coming out? Ancient giant demon? Our magic tribe's ancestor, Purple Devil Lord, couldn't stay still any longer as he watched the valley crack. It was the same for the big devil on the other side. He was very excited. However, there was no other sound after the punch, nor did anything else emerge from the ground. The surroundings once again fell into silence. Nothing special. Did I not release my power? How in the world can I release that kind of peerless power? Long Fei grinned, looking at the incomparably domineering right arm. So handsome. Forget it. Let's talk after we get out. After such a long time, those disciples of Magic Sect should have gone far, right? Long Fei was elated that he had obtained the big Master Guard arm, so he did not take the matter of those disciples of Magic Tribes wanting to kill him to heart. Dragon Sword. How are you? Long Fei walked over to the Genshulong sword's side. The Genshulong sword suddenly floated up and looked at Long Fei, then looked at the sarcophagus. Master, what happened? Long Fei was startled for a moment, and asked, what did you see just now? The Genshulong sword said, I didn't see anything. Long Fei did not understand. Didn't you just fly onto the coffin? Did you not see anything? There's a person lying in the coffin. Who could it be? The Genshulong sword was confused. Did I fly onto the coffin? No, I don't have any memory. I felt a huge power rush towards me and then wave it around in my head. I don't remember anything else. Long Fei looked at the Genshulong sword doubtfully. The Genshulong sword said anxiously, Master, it's true, I won't lie to you. Long Fei muttered, and said, forget it, I will definitely find out who the person in the coffin is in the future anyway. Let's not talk about that for now. Long Fei walked in front of the coffin and took out a space ring, then said seriously, I don't care who you are, and I don't care what your motive is, but I thank you. Long Fei knew clearly in his heart. Without the sarcophagus from before, Long Fei would probably have been dismembered by the 18 ancient giant demons. Zhong Xian felt gratitude in his heart. The space ring moved, and the stone coffin flew inside. Long Fei said, let's go. Long Fei crawled out of the crevice. When the idea moved, it felt that there was no magic tribe in the valley that breathed a sigh of relief, and its entire body also climbed up. Standing in the middle of the valley and looking at the surrounding cracks which were all over the collapsed ground, Long Fei let out a long sigh, just as he was about to sigh. Suddenly, a streak of purple devil fire rushed over. Brat, give me your life. Chapter 2953, Betting on this punch. Chapter 2953, Betting on this punch. His speed was extremely fast. Furthermore, Purple Devil Lord's cultivation was extremely high. He could crush Long Fei as he wished by pressing him to the ground and rubbing against her as much as he wanted. Long Fei's heart tensed. He was not afraid, but instead seething in anger. Damn it, is there no end to it? Do you really think Lousy is afraid of you? Boom. Immediately, his right hand clenched into a fist. Catcher, catcher, catcher. His right arm seemed to have transformed. However, Long Fei's reaction was still a little slow. This was because of the difference in level. He couldn't even clearly see the shadow of the Purple Devil Lord, and simply could not say how he would retaliate. However, at this moment, the Genshulong sword moved slightly. Master, let me do it. The dragon sword flashed. A dragon's roar resounded in the air as it roared. Dragon slash. The sword shadow moved. Buzz, buzz, Buzz. The sky was like a firecracker. Not only were there buzzing and exploding sounds, Long Fei was at the center, and the surroundings were densely packed with dragon sword. A slash. Without a blind spot at 360 degrees, the heavy blow directly landed. Rumble. 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 The entire space seemed to have been crushed as it heavily fell down like a round disc. You want to dodge? It doesn't exist. Fast. It doesn't exist. Hard force. It doesn't exist. Phut. Purple Devil Lord spat out a large mouthful of blood and staggered backwards, his chest dripping with blood. He was too quick to react, or else his entire body would have been hacked into 2 pieces. Long Fei's eyes moved. Take advantage of his illness and kill him, at this moment. Long Fei's silhouette moved, snapshot step. Shua. These disciples of Magic Tribe were still in a daze, and had not reacted at all. By the time they could react, Long Fei was already right beside Purple Devil Lord. Fuck you. You want my life. Now, your father wants your life. Long Fei leaped high into the air, the heavy sword in his left hand, and the sleigh. A piercing sound rang out. Purple Devil Lord's pupils became wide open as his gaze became dim and lifeless. In the end, his body slowly fell to the ground after being cut in half. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing him. Purple Devil Lord has gained 500 million experience, 1 million true spiritual value, 1 universal value. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Currently at the 5th level of the Astral Soul Realm. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Currently at the 6th level of the Astral Soul Realm, he had risen another 2 levels in succession. However, he now had a lot of experience left. Otherwise, he would have been able to level up once again. F***CK. Kill your father. Come on. Do you think I'm a damn cat if I don't show off? Long Fei roared fiercely, the anger in his heart venting, his gaze looking at the surroundings of the valley. Soul Realm killed Emperor Strongman again. This mythical existence. It was impossible. Those disciples of Magic Sect S were all terrified. It was simply unimaginable. If the first time was by chance and he used a divine treasure to kill him, then what about this time? It was clearly a sword. Moreover, although Purple Devil Lord was heavily injured this time, his defense was able to keep up. Their brains felt like they were stuck. It was very uncomfortable. Every single demon dweller looked at Long Fei, their eyes filled with fear. He was completely like a madman. And at that moment, the devil fire on the devil's body suddenly exploded. It was as if his body had disappeared into the devil fire. The devil's rage was heavy as he said, "Brat, I will kill you." Boom. Boom. Rumble. The demonic flames continued to erupt, covering the entire valley in the blink of an eye. The Genshulong sword moved slightly and landed beside Long Fei, saying, "Master, be careful, this guy cultivates the great devil transformation art, and his body is hidden in the devil energy, able to launch attacks at any time. The Genshulong sword could react to it. But Long Fei could not react in time. And the dragon sword's reaction wasn't able to help Long Fei block it in time. However, the Genshulong sword was incomparably careful. His sword intent was also indistinctly released. Long Fei was not afraid. With a heavy voice, he said, "A cowardly turtle? The big devil, right? Grandson, your father is standing here. If you have the guts, come and fuck me. If I move, your father will be your grandson." Long Fei said with a cold smile, and extremely disdainful. Competing in speed. Long Fei couldn't even compare to him. Competing on reaction speed? Long Fei couldn't compare to it either. No matter what, Long Fei would always be pressed down by the great devil and rubbed against the ground. He could only compete in one move. Let's bet on one move. You don't dare. Still afraid. Long Fei continued to ridicule. Dragon sword, walk farther, 100 meters away. Otherwise, I'm afraid that this grandson will continue to hide in the demon chi and not dare to come out. You're still a demon even like this. Or was it the Magic Tribe? You must be from the Devil Eggy race, right? The Genshulong sword trembled slightly, and said in a low voice, "Master, you are not his match." Long Fei said, "To deal with this kind of trash, one of my hands is enough." Dragon sword, if I told you to go, then go. I want to see just how capable this big devil is. Long Fei's eyes moved. The Genshulong sword understood, but he was really worried. However, he was still flying away from Long Fei, and was less than 100 meters away from him. This was his limit. Right after the dragon sword left Long Fei's side, the great devil's vigorous roar sounded, "Arrogant child, die for me." As soon as he finished speaking, the demonic energy in the valley suddenly gathered. Lord of Great Devil appeared in front of Long Fei and used his palms as an illusion. Buzz! With a powerful explosion of energy, the scarlet palm struck towards Long Fei. This power, not to mention the destruction of the world, at least the peak powerhouse could kill him in an instant. Long Fei clenched his right fist tightly, and thought to himself, "Brother, I'm betting on this punch of yours." He could only bet on this punch. Success, he was alive. And 2 more levels up. Failed. He died. From then on, Long Fei no longer existed in this world. There was no other way. If he did not bet, the chances of Long Fei surviving was still very small. Plus, how could Long Fei let such a boss, with 500 million experience, suddenly leveling up to level 2? Moreover, when he leveled up, the next time he would encounter her, he wouldn't have such a high level of experience. Don't submit, just do it. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions exploded out from within his right arm. Long Fei remained motionless as he sent a fist out. "Let's F** King see who is actually going to die." Bam! "Match hands with me? Ha ha ha. Kid, you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Die." He was a little afraid of the Genshulong sword, but now that the dragon sword was not by Long Fei's side, he did not have any qualms. What was even more unexpected was that Long Fei actually exchanged blows with him. It was like a bunk next to the latrine, not too far from death. However, who died? Chapter 2954 One Punch Out Universal Realm. Chapter 2954 One Punch Out Universal Realm. Emperor Strongman. Long Fei, who was at the 6th level of the Soul Realm. The level difference was several tens of levels. In the game, it could be said that no matter how coquettish your position was or how godly your equipment was, you wouldn't be able to kill them. You would only be instantly killed. It was the same in Universal Realm. It was impossible to defeat him. More importantly, this was a head-on clash. Palm to fist, just like that. There was no chance of winning at all. Unlike the Red Devil Lord, which could be considered as Long Fei's move, the two of them could be considered to have sneak attacked each other, but the two of them could be considered to have clashed head-on with the Lord of Great Devil. Die! Or born! Rumble! 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 In the sky, endless explosions of fury were being heard. The crimson palm imprint surged forward, causing the surrounding 100 meters to tremble. This power was extremely frightening. Moreover, in order for Lord of Great Devil to prevent the Genshulong sword from attacking, this palm strike of his could be said to use up all of his strength. He wanted to kill Long Fei in one hit. Trash! Die for me! Lord of Great Devil roared again. He moved, his palms piercing through the air, attacking towards Long Fei's chest. Ferocious strength. It was fast. A crushing defeat. He instantly rushed in front of Long Fei and smashed his palms down. The Genshulong sword moved in the air and roared loudly, "Master!" However, no matter how fast he was, it was too late. Also at this moment, Long Fei's right fist moved. Seeing Lord of Great Devil's palms fall down, the corner of his mouth slightly raised. Facing such a huge power pressure, he did not feel any fear, but instead wanted to laugh like a madman. All of this fell into his trap. What he wanted was to be tough. What he needed was a straight front. Buzz. The 18 ancient giant demons struggling inside the big Master Guard arm, as if all of their struggling power was channeled into Long Fei's fist. The two forces clashed. Buzz. With an explosive sound, a powerful shockwave soared into the sky, as if two heavens were colliding with each other. Strength burst forth. Mad thunder roared in all 4 directions in the sky. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Lord of Great Devil laughed out wildly. You overestimate yourself. You actually dare to go up against me with your cultivation? Ha ha ha. Burn to smithereens for me. He put more strength into his palms. He wanted to turn Long Fei into fine powder. However, without waiting for Lord of Great Devil to release his power, his body suddenly sank. Both of his eyes popped out, as if his eyeballs were about to pop out. Suddenly, his body did not move at all, and he stood rooted to the spot as if he was a fool. Half a second. Lord of Great Devil's Adam's apple moved slightly and his eyes trembled. He said solemnly, "No, no, impossible, absolutely, absolutely." Ah! Before he could finish speaking, Lord of Great Devil flew straight up into the sky. They flew higher and higher. Ah! Ah! As he flew higher and higher, his body slowly turned into a black dot. In the end, his entire body released a ray of starlight and disappeared into the sky. At this moment, Long Fei lowered his body slightly and threw a punch upwards. His posture was very cool and handsome. Up, hook, and punch. Long Fei enunciated every word with killing intent. He slightly raised his eyes, laughed coldly, and said, "You should go along with a line, I will definitely be back. However, you have no chance. In another plane, in a small plane beside the universal realm, a kid riding on a cow looked at the sky and said, Haiji, look, there's someone flying in the sky. You really weren't bragging just now, there's really someone that can fly." The cowherd was excited. Another youth said proudly, "Of course. When have I ever boasted?" And then, the youth had some doubt in his eyes as he looked towards the sky. Rumble. The corner of his mouth twitched a few times. This isn't flying. I have seen hail falling from the sky due to rain, but why is there someone here? Boom. He was scared silly. Without waiting for him to escape, the corpse pressed down on the youth. Lord of Great Devil looked up into the sky, his eyes filled with fear, his lips trembling slightly. He wanted to say something, but no words would come out. Finally, his head tilted slightly and his hair fell in a ponytail. At the same time, ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing Lord of Great Devil for obtaining 600 million experience, 1 million true spiritual value, and 1 universal value. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Blood Soul Palm. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Currently at the 7th level of the Astral Soul Realm. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Currently at the 8th level of the Astral Soul Realm. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Mother's Soul is at level 9. Berserk rank 3. This feeling. That's too much. Apart from the pa, there was nothing more satisfying than leveling up. Actually, Long Fei looked at the night sky and muttered, "I really want to know where he flew off to." If he knew that Lord of Great Devil had been forced out of Universal Realm with a single punch, he would probably be an idiot himself. Then again, Long Fei also wanted to know whether the punch just now was a normal attack or an extremely strong attack from the big Master Guard arm. It was a little hard to bear. The Genshulong sword landed beside Long Fei. He was also stunned and immediately asked, "Master, are you alright?" "I'm fine." Long Fei clapped his hands. In fact, he did have something to do, since the power of the big Master Guard arm was not used to attack nor defend. He had also received the Lord of Great Devil's attack, but he had leveled up. Level up meant a full recovery and revival. Damage? It doesn't exist. Long Fei's gaze swept across them, looking at the disciples of Magic Tribe in the forest. He asked solemnly, "Who else?" Whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, those disciples of Magic Tribe figures all ran away as if they had seen a ghost. Not to mention revenge, they felt that their parents had given birth to less than 2 legs. At the same time, Long Fei also let out a deep breath. Phew. Thank goodness I'm done. Otherwise, this year's dinner would be really tough. Long Fei muttered. Killing Red Devil Lord was by relying on the Weasel's illusion techniques, killing Purple Devil Lord by relying on the Genshulong sword's Dragon Slash, killing Lord of Great Devil by relying on the power of the big Master Guard arm. These were all not his own power. Moreover, these are unstable forces. Not every time. If it was those disciples of Magic Tribes who attacked him together, Long Fei had no confidence that he would be able to survive until tomorrow. And it was a level. Level was definitely a hard hit. I still need to speed up my cultivation. Also, I need to figure out what exactly is going on with the power of the big Master Guard arm, Long Fei muttered in his heart. Then he looked at the ruined valley and said, "The Appreciation Assembly. It's become a meeting of the dead." Long Fei brought the Genshulong sword and walked out of the valley. Inside the crevice, a mass of black fog silently floated out and turned into a wisp of black smoke before disappearing into the night. Chapter 2955, Pulling on a Beautiful Woman. Chapter 2955, Pulling on a Beautiful Woman. Grand Court? Grand Court. Long Fei searched around the valley a few times, but didn't find Grand Court. Moreover, at that time, he was so close. As long as he was met with the disciples of Magic Tribe, he probably would not live. Sigh. It's going to be difficult now. I don't even know how to get back now. Long Fei was puzzled. The flying shuttle was kept by the Xianwu Pavilion, so how could he leave this place without a flying shuttle on him? The key was. Did not even know what kind of place this was. Furthermore, what was even more troublesome was that, if the Xianwu Pavilion was truly dead, then how could he say that he was returning home in the morning? Would the elders of Xianwu Pavilion let him go? Then there was the matter of the God's Design Attic. Thinking about all these, Long Fei felt his scalp tingle. Thinking about the God's Design Attic, Long Fei took out the order badge and muttered, "Is there really a route to the God's Design Attic above here?" The idea moved. Long Fei's idea entered the center of the God's Design token, and her mind was secretly shocked. This is a huge fairyland, a huge space. Heh! What is this? A ball of 7-colored flame floated within the world of the command medallion. Ding! Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Heaven's Secret Fire. The system sounded out, causing Long Fei to understand, Heaven's Secret. For refining weapons. Looking at the attribute of the Heaven's Secret Fire, Long Fei was secretly speechless. Damn, God-tier flame. A holy artifact that is used for smithing? God's Design Attic is indeed generous. He immediately started to refine the divine level holy flames. It looks like there are a lot of divine treasures in this God's Design Attic. If they were all reclaimed by me, I wonder how much experience would they reclaim? Heh. Long Fei became evil. Unless it was for his own use, Long Fei would reclaim everything into his experience points. God's Design Attic was known as the place with the most divine treasures beneath the God's tribe. It was definitely a place with divine treasures like a mountain. Who knows, maybe Long Fei could even risk his life to cultivate for a year outside, and it might not even be enough to retrieve a divine treasure's experience points within the God's Design Attic. The map is here. When I have time in the future, I will definitely go to God's Design Attic. Long Fei became excited. Right now, he didn't want to go to God's Design Attic. Firstly, Lan Mai, Su Su and the others were still in the fairy city. Secondly, his current cultivation level was too low. The 4 disciples of the God's Design Attic were all Royal Realmess. What if his cultivation was used to retrieve one of God's Design Attic's divine treasures? At least he could protect himself, right? Third, he promised Yuan Tianwang that he would participate in the Fatri sect selection. Fatri sect was a big sect in the western regions. It could not be considered the strongest, but it could be considered a top existence. There were many books in the Fatri sect that recorded everything about the universal realm. For example, the position of the Xiao Yarrow city. And then again, the Fatri sect could provide him with a lot of leveling areas, so no matter how much time passed, he would always be scared. If he had a teacher to guide him, would he be faster, and would be able to absorb more experience? Long Fei had a lot of things to do. One at a time. What he needed to do the most now was to find a way back to the fairy city. However, after walking for 3 consecutive days, Long Fei was also unable to find a path. He was still deep in the mountains. If only there were ice and fire. Sigh. Next time I have money, I must buy a flying shuttle. Otherwise, I must catch a flying bird. This way, my walking speed will be too slow. Right. If only elder swordsmen had taught me the imperial sword technique. Long Fei muttered to himself as he walked listlessly in no direction. Another few days passed. Climbing over mountains after mountains, there was still no sign of humans. Along the way, countless demon beasts were killed by him, but these demon beasts' level was too low, and there were almost no experience points present. Moreover, his clothes were torn and his face was covered in filth. His hair was messy and he looked like a wild man. Sigh. I can't take it anymore. I am such a handsome and cool man. I have a peerless game system. I kill gods and gods, but today, I meet Buddha. How depressing it is for me to be trapped here. If there really are hundreds of millions of kilometers in this mountain, then lousy. Long Fei felt his scalp tingling and his eyes becoming dizzy. He could not take it anymore. Gu. His stomach began to sing. Hungry again. These days. What the F***ck Long Fei complained and then picked up some firewood to start a fire. He privately grilled a piece of leg of the tiger that he had just killed over the fire. Fortunately, there are a lot of seasonings. Long Fei muttered to himself. He was used to living in the wild. Therefore, they usually brought a lot of daily necessities. Who asked him to be the system host for killing monsters and leveling up? Not long later, the barbecue would give off an alluring aroma. Long Fei cut off a small piece of oily roast meat and put it in his mouth to chew. It was extremely tasty. If there's a sis around, it would be good as well, at least we can chat. However, before he could finish his words, a woman in white clothes quietly landed behind him. Looking at the roasted meat on the fire rack that gave off a fragrance that made people swallow their saliva, they asked, "Are you selling this roasted meat?" Gudong. The crisp sound of someone swallowing their saliva. Long Fei was shocked. He turned his head around quickly and looked at the beautiful woman dressed in white, his eyes staring straight ahead. The girl in front of him was really a bit breathtakingly beautiful. He was just like a fairy that didn't eat the world. In that instant, even Long Fei was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe his eyes. How could there be such a beautiful woman in this deep forest? Isn't this too surprising? The woman asked again, "Are you selling this roast meat?" Long Fei did not answer, but asked, "Are you a human or a ghost, or a fairy that just descended from the heavens?" The woman pursed her lips and smiled. "I just passed by them and came up to them because of the smell." Passing by from below. Long Fei was startled. He stood up and walked forward a few steps, then discovered a mountain path not far away. His entire body became excited, as though he had seen the advertisement on the teleportation pole and knew that he had been cured of his many years of illness. I finally saw the road. It's been almost 10 days. I. Long Fei was too excited to say anything. Because he was too excited, he inadvertently grabbed the white-clothed female's hand and jumped up in excitement. The woman in white didn't struggle, but smiled kindly. However, at this moment, a cold light flashed. A ray of killing intent suddenly attacked, and heavily shouted, "Beast, demon beast, you actually dared to harm Qing-er, give me your life." As soon as his voice faded, swordlight burst forth. And also at that moment, an imposing aura attacked, enveloping Long Fei within. In an instant, Long Fei felt as if he had fallen into a death trap. Most importantly, Long Fei was too excited and did not react in time. By the time he could react, the sword was already at his back. A cold shiver went down his spine. Long Fei's mind suddenly moved. The dragon sword released a buzzing sound, but without waiting for Long Fei to retaliate, the lady in white suddenly moved and pulled Long Fei to her side. Long Fei fell in the white-clothed female's arms. Wow. He was immediately pulled into his arms. This sort of treatment. This was the first time for Long Fei. He never expected that the young girl would have such great strength and that his own body would crash into her bosom in an instant. Moreover, at this time, the white-clothed girl's sleeve moved and a thin sword appeared in her hand. Clang! The two swords clashed, and the white-clothed female's thin sword slightly trembled, blocking the young man's long sword, and said, Qin Shuang, he is a human. The young man stared at Long Fei, who was being pulled into the woman's embrace. The anger in his heart almost burned his head. If looks could kill, then Long Fei had already died 10,000 times. I have never been treated like this, but I was treated like this by a barbarian. Qin Shuang was furious, and said solemnly, Qing'er, even if he is human, he is still a savage. Look at him, or else he is a savage, or else a murderer is hiding on this mountain. I can say that he is definitely not a good person. Long Fei revealed a fearful expression and said, I didn't kill anyone. I helped the crippled old Wang next door to find the lost pig to enter the mountain. I am a good person. After walking in this deep mountain for 10 days, I thought that I would not be able to leave. As he spoke, he had a sorrowful look on his face. His expression was clear. His acting was perfect. Long Fei would never show off his previous acting if he was not an Oscar actor. The white-clothed female was completely fooled by Long Fei. She immediately consoled him and said, Don't be scared, I'll protect you. Qin Shuang, you heard it. I forbid you to touch him. Qin Shuang's eyes sunk, his teeth chattered loudly. Qing'er, don't be fooled by him. The lady in white said, Why would he lie to me when he's fine? Look at how pitiful he is. Don't be afraid. I'll get you out of here. The white-clothed woman had a face full of kindness. Long Fei could feel a unique aura from her body. Qin Shuang was so angry that he was about to stamp his feet. He looked at Long Fei with a heavy gaze and took out a few grand mist crystals from his bosom and threw them at Long Fei's feet. Long Fei revealed a look of fear again, and slowly retreated. He sneered in his heart, Your sister, you want to send this father away with just a few grand mist crystals? Let alone a few grand mist crystals, even if several 100 million were placed in front of me, this old man still wouldn't leave. The white-clothed female said with a displeased expression, Qin Shuang, if you continue to be like this, I'll be angry. Qing'er, don't. Qin Shuang's expression became anxious, and his tone slightly changed. He looked at Long Fei and asked, Where are you from? Long Fei casually made up a village and said, Liujiao village. Qin Shuang said, Okay, I will send you back to Liujiao village. Humph. And then, Qin Shuang flung his sleeves and walked down the mountain with large strides. The white-clothed female looked at Qin Shuang and said, Don't be afraid, he's like this. Right. Your barbecue. Long Fei immediately said, I don't want money, you can eat whatever you want. The woman in white swallowed her saliva and said, Then I won't be polite. As he spoke, he tore off a piece of roasted meat and began to eat it slowly. His eyes flickered with excitement as he said, So delicious. I've never eaten anything so delicious before. It wasn't that she hadn't eaten, but that she hadn't eaten anything at all. Ever since she was young, she had never eaten anything that could fill her stomach. It was a tonic made from various elixirs to save her time for eating. Long Fei also felt it. The woman in white's cultivation wasn't low. In the instant he was grabbed by her, Long Fei could feel the dense power from the woman in white's body. Long Fei laughed, I'll roast however much you want to eat in the future. The lady in white said, Thank you. Long Fei said, Just now, you saved me, so it is only my duty to repay you. I wonder where you are going. The lady in white did not think much of it, and said, We will go to God's Devil City to complete the mission. Long Fei's heart was secretly shocked, and his face was filled with astonishment. Sect mission? Then what sect's disciple are you? The white-clothed female looked at Long Fei's shocked expression and said, We are Fatri sect's disciples. Fatri sect? Long Fei was even more shocked. After all, the Fatri sect was her sect and she liked this place. She asked, Do you know the Fatri sect? Long Fei nodded his head, and said, I know, big sect, who doesn't know? When will you be going back then? The woman in white said, We don't know about that yet. We need to complete our mission before we can go back. Otherwise, we'd be busy. Long Fei gently regarding God's Devil City, Long Fei, he also had some understanding in the East Imperial City. Even though it was called a city, it was still a bandit's nest. He was domineering and committed all sorts of crimes. A place of sin. Long Fei never thought that he would run into disciples of the Fatri sect here. The distance between them was not far. If he could return together with them, it would be much easier. Looking at the beautiful little sister factory sect, Long Fei became even more determined. I have to enter the factory sect. He followed the white-clothed woman down the mountain and onto the mountain path. There were 3 more disciples on the mountain path. Seeing Long Fei walk down, a young disciple revealed a look of contempt, and said, "Senior fellow Qin, he is that savage beast?" "You don't say." "If I had met him in the forest, I would have really thought of him as a demon beast and killed him instantly." Another female disciple also revealed a look of disdain. "To protect such a savage beast, junior sister Chu is truly a lover, he really won't spare anyone." Qin Shuang's eyes turned sinister. The woman snorted coldly and said nothing. The lady in white was called Chu Qing. Of the 5, she was the youngest. Chu Qing said, "I already said, he is not some savage beast, he just got lost deep in the mountains." "Right. He even gave me barbecue. It's so delicious, do you guys want to eat it?" Chu Qing said with a serious face. Qin Shuang said in disdain, "Even my dog wouldn't spare a single glance at this kind of trash food." "Exactly. Junior sister Chu, we are disciples of the factory sect. Eating these trash will only waste our time and destroy our energy. I feel sick just by looking at it." The 3 of them began to despise him. The other man took a step forward and said, "Give me a bit, I haven't eaten meat in a long time." Chu Qing nodded happily. He tore off a piece of barbecue for the man and excitedly asked, "How is it? Is it delicious?" "Hee." The man said, "That's right. Little brother, the meat is quite good. Thank you." As a form of greeting to Long Fei nodded and smiled. The other 3 looked down on him. Qin Shuang walked in front of Long Fei and said, "Brat, remember, once you reach Liu Jiao village, immediately scram. Otherwise." Staring at the other party with widened eyes, Zhong Xian clenched his fists tightly as the strength in his body surged. In an instant, he suppressed the other party's fist. Long Fei's body slightly trembled. The Zhenshulong sword immediately said, "His cultivation is at the 6th level of the Emperor realm, and is also the highest among these people. Master, do you want me to kill him?" Chapter 2957, Surround. Chapter 2957, Surround. Zhenshulong's sword was very irritable. Based on his character, Qin Shuang and the other 2 were already 3 corpses. The power of Zhenshulong's sword could be said to be extremely easy to instantly kill. Long Fei was very clear on this point. When he had heavily injured the Emperor strongman with a dragon slash, these people were only royal realm, killing them in an instant was too easy. However, Long Fei was not a homicidal maniac. As long as they didn't cross his bottom line, he wouldn't be tempted to kill. Long Fei said, "There's no rush." The Zhenshulong sword did not speak. Chu Qing smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, that is what senior brother Qin Shuang is like. Your barbecue is great, it's the most delicious thing I've ever eaten since young, senior brother Zheng, right?" Zhang Yuanhang said, "Indeed, it's not bad. It's even more fragrant than the Xian crystal meat." "Humph." Qin Shuang coldly snorted again, rolled his eyes, and said to Zheng Yuanhang, "Have you eaten your fill? If you're done eating, then hurry up and leave. We didn't bring you here to chat while watching the scenery." Zhang Yuanhang immediately swallowed all of the roasted meat and quickly ran forward. Chu Qing said in a low voice, "Senior brother Zheng's perception is extremely strong. He can let us successfully avoid danger. Now that we have entered the territory of the God's Devil City, we have to be careful. Don't be afraid. If you encounter any danger, just hide behind me. I will protect you." Chu Qing squinted her eyes, like 2 crescent moons. Very cute. She was too kind. Long Fei felt warmth in his heart, and said, "Amen." Under Zheng Yuanhang's senses, they dodged the God's Devil City's secret sentry. After 1 day, they were less than 3 kilometers away from God's Devil City. In the dense forest, they could already see the city gate in the distance. "Rest for the night. We'll enter the city tomorrow." Qin Shuang lowered his voice, stared at Long Fei and said, "Kid, I don't care if it's your Liu family or some dog family, when the day is bright, you better scram. If you break our mission, I will definitely not forgive you." "Humph." Qin Shuang coldly snorted. Chu Qing comforted her, "Don't worry, just wait for me here tomorrow. After we finish our sex mission, I will come here to look for you, and then send you back to Liu Jiao village. Long Fei laughed. Thank you. Chu Qing smiled and said, you're welcome. I've eaten your roast meat, so of course I'll help you. Qing this kind of person is not worth for you to help him out. Look at him, you guys are destined to not be from the same world. At that time I will just give him some money and let him go home by himself. Chu Qing asked, why are they not from the same world? Aren't we all in universal realm? Senior fellow Qin, you can't be prejudiced against other people, this is something master taught you. 30 years in the river, 30 years in the river, in the West, anything can happen in the world of martial arts. Ha ha ha. Qin Shuang sneered, and said, you are right. 30 years in the river, 30 years in the river, in the West, any kind of miracle can happen in the world of martial arts, but it would never happen to someone like him. Kid, there's bound to be no miracle on your body. There's a saying that trash will always be trash and will never change, Qin Shuang ruthlessly said with contempt. Long Fei smiled faintly, and said, some people can't even be compared to trash. Both of Qin Shuang's eyes were filled with anger as he stared at Long Fei. Kid, who did you say is worse than trash? Long Fei did not cower, and directly said, I was talking about you. You're courting death. Qin Shuang moved his cold sword and was about to pull out. It was also at this time. Zhang Yuanhang suddenly rushed out. With a heavy voice, he said, oh no, we are surrounded. Not waiting for him to finish. Boom. 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 100 meters away, countless torches were lit, surrounding them in the center. A deep voice sounded out, I have long heard that someone from the Factory sect wants my life, and I was so scared that I didn't dare to go out for this period of time. I didn't expect. It's you little bastards. Just you brats want my life. Ha ha ha. He began to laugh maniacally. Zhang Yuanhang ran over while gasping for breath. What do we do? Qin Shuang's eyes darkened, and he said, isn't your sensing ability able to cover 10 kilometers? Why don't they even know how to get close to it? The woman said, there's a spy among us. In that instant, Qin Shuang moved, he pointed his ice sword, and instantly pointed at the center of Long Fei's forehead, saying angrily, kid, I knew that something was wrong with you. You are the spy. Immediately, the lady and the other man immediately pulled out their weapons and looked at Long Fei. Long Fei did not speak. Because, at this moment, the Zhenshulong sword was speaking, Master, there are 360 people, these are all wicked people with extremely high cultivation, the lowest is at the saint level, and the highest is at the emperor level. With just the few royal realm-s, they were simply unable to deal with that powerhouse. Long Fei moved and said, is there a way? The Zhenshulong sword said, if you want to escape without casualties, the only way is to escape. The West is the breakthrough. Chu Qing protected Long Fei by his side, and said, he was with us along the way, how could he be a spy? She did not believe that a man who could roast meat so delicious could be a spy. He's not a spy, do you think the 5 of us have spies? Qin Shuang roared, his eyes filled with killing intent, as though he wanted to pierce through Long Fei's forehead with his sword. Long Fei looked at Chu Qing and said, do you trust me? Chu Qing did not hesitate, and nodded, I believe you. All right. Then come with me later. If you want to live, then come with me. Long Fei turned and ran towards the west. Qin Shuang's eyes turned sinister. You want to escape? Give me your life. The sword shocked the air. Chu Qing stared blankly at her, and once again blocked her. Qin Shuang said with incomparable fury, Qing'er, what are you trying to do? Chu Qing said, I believe that he is not a spy. Looking at Long Fei's back that was about to disappear, Chu Qing said slightly, let's believe in him first, what if he can bring us away? Finished. Chu Qing chased after him. Zhang Yuanhang also said slightly, senior fellow Qin, think of another way first. Soon after, Zhang Yuanhang also followed. Qin Shuang's eyes tensed up, senior fellow Qin, what should we do? I don't really trust that kid. How about bringing us into the encirclement? Qin Shuang said solemnly, we are already surrounded, what other encirclement are there? Follow first. If anything goes wrong, kill him immediately. Both of them nodded heavily. The 3 of them also quickly followed. Long Fei felt like there was a navigation tool in his mind. Turn left. To the right. There's a ravine ahead. Jump down. Long Fei did not hesitate and directly jumped down. Chapter 2958. You want your father to die. Chapter 2958. You want your father to die. Zhen Shulong's sword is a super navigation system. It was even more accurate than the map of Gord from his previous life. Even Long Fei thought that the Zhen Shulong sword was just looking at the map and leaving. Actually, what he did not know was that the dragon soul of the Zhen Shulong sword was exploring the path ahead of Long Fei. Every second, every step was exceptionally precise. Nothing could go wrong. Standing at the edge of the ravine, he saw Long Fei jumping down. Qin Shuang looked at the unfathomable deep ravine and shouted angrily, "Brat, you want us all to fall to our deaths." Zhang Yuanhang immediately said, "They're catching up." Chu Qing clenched his fists, and his entire body jumped down. Long Fei was waiting below. Chu Qing immediately said after landing, "Jump, it's very safe down there." Zhang Yuanhang also jumped down. Qin Shuang and the others finally caught up. Long Fei went deeper into the ravine. Qin Shuang was speechless again. "Do you want to bring us to a dead end? Once the people of God's Devil City attack, we will die." Long Fei was too lazy to bother with him. He just needed to make sure that Chu Qing would follow along. Long Fei did not care about the other people's lives. If not for Chu Qing, Long Fei would have escaped long ago. "You dog." Seeing Long Fei ignoring him, the anger in Qin Shuang's heart grew even stronger, and he said, "I want to see where you bringing us to." Deep within the ravine, there was an exit to a cave. Through the cave, he could be considered to have completely escaped. Long Fei pretended to be panting and said, all right, we've escaped." At this moment, they could no longer hear the voices of the group of God's Devil City's. Chu Qing's face was also flushed red as she said, "Thank you." Long Fei waved his hand, "You're welcome." At this time, Qin Shuang quickly walked forward, pointed at Long Fei, and heavily said with a move of his long sword, "Speak, what is the relationship between you and the God's Devil City?" Everyone was shocked. Long Fei slightly raised his eyes. Along the way, he kept talking non-stop, and even pointed his F*king sword at him time and time again. He was in a rather bad mood. Chu Qing asked, "Senior fellow Qin, what are you doing? If it wasn't for him, we probably would have all died." "Humph. This is God's Devil City's territory, but he is so familiar with the terrain here. Do you dare to say that this has nothing to do with God's Devil City?" Qin Shuang replied heavily. Chu Qing was also secretly startled, and looked at Long Fei. I already knew he had a problem. The corner of Long Fei's mouth curled up as he sneered, "I just want to ask, are you guys still alive?" Zhang Yuanhang slightly said, "If it wasn't for him in that situation earlier, we really would have lost our lives." Long Fei continued, "I saved your lives. If you want to thank me, then forget it, but still point the sword at me. You're really F*king awesome. I'll give you a warning. I'll remember it. If you use your sword to point at Laozi again, I will break your hand." Finished. Long Fei stared at Qin Shuang like a god. Buzz, Qin Shuang's mind suddenly trembled. He did not dare to look straight into Long Fei's eyes. For some reason, an extremely strong sense of fear arose in his heart, and he subconsciously kept his sword. It was as if his hand would break if he pointed at Long Fei for one more second. After a few seconds, the fear in Qin Shuang's mind disappeared, and in his heart, he was startled. What happened to me? Why would you be afraid of a country bumpkin?" He was extremely confused. However, that feeling of fear just now was too unbearable. "Senior fellow Qin, what's wrong? That brat actually dares to speak to you like that. Just send him to the heavens with a single slash." "What is it?" A woman and a man spoke in a deep voice. Qin Shuang did not speak anymore. He gnashed his teeth in his heart, and his hatred for Long Fei grew even more. "This mission is too difficult for you. I think we should give it up," Long Fei said. It was too easy for an emperor strongman to deal with a nameless royal realm warrior. Moreover, there were even more powerhouse with higher cultivation than them. With their level of cultivation, it was almost impossible for them to complete this mission. Chu Qing shook his head and said, "That won't do, this is the sect's mission, and also Master's assessment of us. If we don't complete it, Master will be unhappy. In addition, the people of the God's Devil City do all sorts of evil, kill, rob, many of the surrounding villages and small towns have all died. If we do not get rid of the owner of God's Devil City, many more will die." She didn't even pay much attention to the previous tests, but thinking about how many more people had died made her sad. Long Fei asked, "Must you kill owner of God's Devil City?" Chu Qing nodded his head and said firmly, "Definitely." Long Fei secretly frowned. "Scared? That's normal, it's normal for a country bumpkin like you to be scared." A man walked up and mocked, "How could someone like you understand the thoughts of a powerhouse like us? How do you know the goals that we powerhouse pursue? In your country bumpkin world, we are high gods." "Humph." The man sneered. Fatri sect was an extremely powerful sect of the western regions, and it was an overlord level. To ordinary people, disciples of the Fatri sect were existences as high and mighty as gods. However, Long Fei simply disdained it. Qin Shuang walked over and said, "Owner of God's Devil City is indeed powerful. Emperor Strongman, if we want to take care of him, we cannot go head-on against him. We still have treasures. It's not impossible." Chu Qing asked, "Senior fellow Qin, what method do you have?" Qin Shuang looked at Long Fei and said, "There is a way, but it requires the cooperation of someone." "How do we cooperate?" "As long as we can get rid of this owner of God's Devil City, this heinous villain, I am willing to cooperate." Chu Qing said with a kind expression. Qin Shuang said, "You won't do, you should know that the divine treasure Master handed to us requires the 5 of us to activate it before we can unleash its full power." Chu Qing asked with doubt, "Really? Why haven't I heard of it from Master?" Qin Shuang said, "Master only told me this matter." Chu Qing muttered, "Oh, then." Qin Shuang looked at Long Fei and revealed a smile. "Brother, I'm sorry about what happened just now, I was overthinking it, I apologize to you. I wonder if you would be willing to help us this time?" Long Fei asked, "How do I help?" Qin Shuang said, "It's very simple, today we escaped. The owner of God's Devil City would never think that we would directly infiltrate the God's Devil City. You come with us, you lure the owner of God's Devil City out, we will activate the divine treasure and kill him." F***ck. Long Fei cursed in his heart, going around and around, "So you want me to send you to your death?" Without waiting for Long Fei's reply, Qin Shuang took out a bag of Grand Mist crystals and said, "As long as you are willing, these 10,000 Grand Mist crystals are yours. It's enough for you to marry 10 wives and live your entire life." The corner of Long Fei's mouth curled up, gently smiled, and said, "All right, I'll help." Qin Shuang's eyes flashed with a bright light as he thought to himself, "Brat, you're dead this time, ha ha ha." Long Fei was very good at this kind of thing. Long Fei was very good at this kind of thing. Control the aggro well and maintain a safe distance. As long as the boss was not instantly killed, it wouldn't be a problem. In the game, Long Fei was a professional in blabbering. However, a game is a game. This is reality. He wasn't going to face a level 1 or 2 higher boss, but a few level 10 emperor bosses. The most important thing was that he wasn't sure if the boss he lured out was a boss or a group of bosses. It could be said, there was a slim chance of death in trying to lure the owner of God's Devil City out. However, Long Fei agreed. First, owner of God's Devil City is a boss. Second, owner of God's Devil City is a boss. Third, owner of God's Devil City is also a boss. All the reasons were just one. That was boss. That was enough. If Long Fei were to fight alone, it would be dangerous and difficult. However, with Qin Shuang and these free thugs, he might be able to relax a lot. Plus, from the experience of several hundred powerhouses. Right now, he was at the critical point in his attempt to break through the God's Elephant State. Whether he could break through the God's Elephant State before the Fatri sect selection would depend on tonight. Satisfying, Qin Shuang was excited and laughed non-stop in his heart. "If you don't die this time, I'll change my surname to yours." Chu Qing was a little worried. Zhang Yuanhang said slightly, I will accurately lock onto the position of the owner of God's Devil City for you. Long Fei said, thank you. In the middle of the night, a group of 6 quietly snuck into the God's Devil City. Indeed, owner of God's Devil City indeed did not expect that Qin Shuang and the others would come again. He thought that Qin Shuang and the others were too scared to come back. Thus, the security in God's Devil City was not strict, and could be said to be lax. Ahead is the City Lord's mansion, which is also where the God's Devil City lives. Zhang Yuanhang said softly. Qin Shuang patted Long Fei's shoulders and said, brother, it's up to you now. We will activate the divine treasure here, you must lure him here. Chu Qing said, you must be careful. Long Fei smiled faintly and said, don't worry, I'll still have to come back to roast meat for you. While they were talking, Long Fei snuck into the City Lord's mansion. The Zhenshulong sword once again activated its navigation mode. Master, my cultivation is at the Emperor realm of the owner of God's Devil City, I can kill him. Long Fei said indifferently, no rush. They treat me like a fool, and I also want to play with them like monkeys. Isn't that just playing with them? Then let's see who can win against who. Long Fei sneered. Even if the Zhenshulong sword could kill the owner of God's Devil City in one move, Long Fei would not let him do it. You want to send him to his death? Damn it. After passing through a few gardens, Long Fei arrived at a large hall. The main hall was brightly lit. Cheerful moans and yells were constantly heard from inside the cave. Come on, have a good time. City Lord, come catch me. Hee hee. City Lord, I am here. Catch me, tonight I'll be yours, hey. All kinds of laughter. Long Fei shook his head and muttered, I didn't expect the mayor to be such an emotional person. Cough. Cough. Clearing his throat, Long Fei said in a daze, grandson, grandfather is here, quickly come out to die. No response. Long Fei's voice could not be heard at all. Because there were at least 20 women in the room. There were other sounds that could be heard in the wine pond and the meat forest. Damn. Long Fei muttered, and once again shouted loudly, grandson, grandfather is here, quickly come out and accept your death. Still no reaction. I'll throw it. Is this move not effective? No reason. Long Fei scratched his head, the idea moved, he flipped his right hand. Buzz. The Zhenshulong sword flew out. Long Fei said lightly, go, bring him out. Shua. A piercing sound was heard, the Zhenshulong sword shot straight into the hall, followed by a series of screams. Ah! 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 The entire hall was instantly thrown into chaos. Hearing the scream, the City Lord's mansion immediately lit up with light. Elite guards rushed out from every path and rushed into the main hall. Assassins! Assassins! It's in the City Lord's room. Quick! 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 In an instant, in less than half a minute, the space in front of Long Fei was filled with people. Kid, who are you? Who sent you? Where's your partner? You're not talking? If you don't say anything, then kill him. Long Fei stood at his original position and scratched his ears, as if he didn't hear anything. At this moment, the door of the hall was pushed open, and bare-chested City Lord slowly walked out, cautiously and with a heavy voice, all of you, stop fucking for me. On his neck was a sword. A bloody wound had already appeared on his neck. Owner of God's Devil City was so scared that the 2 lumps of fat on his chest were trembling. Big brother, whatever you want, just say it. As long as my God's Devil City has it, you can take it. Owner of God's Devil City's Adam's apple rolled as he spoke with a pale face. A mere sword. He wouldn't be afraid of the godly sword, no matter how powerful it was. However, he had never seen a sword like the Zhenshulong sword before. It could only be described with one word. Abnormal. Long Fei smiled lightly, and said, if God's Devil City has any precious treasures, any metals, take them out for me. Owner of God's Devil City immediately replied, okay. Men, bring me all of my treasures. Quick, don't waste my lord's time. 10 minutes later, a pile of over 100 things slowly piled up in front of Long Fei. However, without even a single holy artifact, Long Fei swept his sleeve and kept all of them inside the space ring. The idea moved. Recycling. Ding. System notification. Experience points plus 803,7421 points. Long Fei smiled slightly. This experience points is great. Owner of God's Devil City said, Big brother, I have given you everything. Can you let me go now? Long Fei said, still not enough. There is one more thing that I need you to do. Owner of God's Devil City said, tell me, as long as you can spare my life, I will do anything for you. Long Fei smiled slightly and said, follow me. Senior Fellow Qin, it's been 20 minutes and the City Lord's mansion has quietened down from the start. Do you think that kid will succeed? Success? Qin Shuang laughed coldly, and said, with his level of cultivation, how could such a trash of a country bumpkin be able to lure out owner of God's Devil City of the Emperor Realm? The man asked, then why did you let him lure the owner of God's Devil City? Qin Shuang laughed coldly, and said, using a knife to kill someone. Huh. Gao. Senior Fellow Qin is truly worthy of being called a Senior Fellow Qin. His really high Qin Shuang also sneered, fight with me? Mph, look at what you've said, just that trash of a country bumpkin. Not waiting for him to finish. Zhang Yuanhang suddenly ran over and said, Senior Fellow Qin, owner of God's Devil City is out. Immediately, Qin Shuang was dumbfounded. Chapter 2960 Letting the Tiger Out of the Cage. Chapter 2960 Letting the Tiger Out of the Cage. Qin Shuang only wanted Long Fei to die. With regards to this assessment mission, he did not have much hope. After all, the sect's information was wrong. With the plan to send Long Fei to his death, he never thought that the owner of God's Devil City would actually be lured out. The worst part was, it was heading in their direction. The male disciple said with a heavy voice, this. How is that possible? He, a trash of a country bumpkin, can actually lure the owner of God's Devil City out? This is way too incredible. Seeing that Qin Shuang's face was extremely ugly, he immediately shut his mouth and asked, Senior Fellow Qin, what do we do now? Qin Shuang said solemnly, what do we do? Kill that country bumpkin for me. Huh. The man didn't know how to react. Qin Shuang shouted, can you not have some brain? With just that trash of a country bumpkin, you can lure the owner of God's Devil City out? It must be colluded. This was the only possibility. Otherwise, it would not make sense. The man reacted and immediately said, that's right, why didn't I think of it? From this kid's familiarity with the terrain, I knew that this kid must be someone from the God's Devil City. Zhang Yuanhang slightly said, that can't be. I don't think he wants to be the unpardonable one. Qin Shuang berated him, and said, to know a person's face but not their heart, what kind of world have you, Zhang Yuanhang, seen? Zhang Yuanhang lowered the center of his brows, then what do we do now? Qin Shuang thought for a few seconds, then said, I'm afraid we are already surrounded, and all of this is because of that brat, so no matter what, we have to kill that brat. Don't worry. Wait for him to get close, we'll take advantage of his surprise and kill him. Zhang Yuanhang said, then what happened after that? Qin Shuang said, Junior brother Zheng, delay owner of God's Devil City and allow Chu Qing to leave first. Me? Zhang Yuanhang asked, why me? Qin Shuang glared and said, because I am your senior brother on this mission, my orders are your own. If I say you want to delay the owner of God's Devil City, then you are. Any more questions? The man and woman beside him sneered. It was just as Qin Shuang had said. He was a senior brother, so he replied solemnly, I understand. At this time, Chu Qing also ran over and asked, Senior Fellow Qin, where is the divine treasure that Master gave you? Now, the 5 of us will activate it together and owner of God's Devil City will be here shortly. A divine treasure? Qin Shuang sneered, what divine treasure is that? No divine treasures. Chu Qing exclaimed, didn't you say there was a divine treasure at the beginning? Do you need the 5 of us to start it? Why is it gone again? At this time, Qin Shuang did not lie to Chu Qing anymore, and said, there is simply no divine treasure, I was the one who lied to you about all these, I just wanted you to see clearly that trash of a country bumpkin. Just him alone can lure out the owner of God's Devil City. They're in a gang. Qing do you recognize his face now? Qin Shuang revealed a proud smile, and thought in his heart, you want to steal my woman? Fight with me. I have 100 ways to play you to death. Chu Qing was shocked. You did all this just to send him to his death? Qin Shuang said, wrong, I only wanted him to reveal his true face. He is someone from the God's Devil City, an unforgivable person. Chu Qing looked at Long Fei, who was walking out of the City Lord's mansion, and shook his head. I don't believe that he's a bad guy. He saved us. How could he be a bad guy? She never thought of a person as a bad person. Moreover, how could someone who could roast meat so delicious be a bad guy? Qin Shuang said sincerely, Junior Sister Qing, you have been deceived by him. In this world, I'm the only one who wouldn't lie to you. I truly treat you well. Chu Qing shook his head. No, I need to ask him in person. She did not believe that Long Fei was a bad guy. Just as she was about to walk out, Qin Shuang grabbed her hand. The hidden strength in his palm immediately locked onto Chu Qing and said, there's no need to ask, I'm sure that he's an evil person. Chu Qing struggled up and said, Qin Shuang, let go of me. Qin Shuang said, this is for your own good, he is an unforgivable person, I will definitely kill him today. Chu Qing's cultivation was not as strong as Qin Shuang's, she was completely suppressed and could not break free. It was also at this time. Long Fei said softly, the owner of God's Devil City you all want is here. Chu Qing shouted, run, quickly, senior brother Qin Shuang wants to kill you. Qin Shuang's eyes darkened, in a fit of rage, he threw a slap, slut. Pa. Chu Qing's face turned red, and a trickle of blood leaked out from the corner of his mouth. Seeing her like this, Qin Shuang's heart once again ached, and he said, Qing I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose, Chu Qing did not look at him, and still shouted loudly, let's go, quickly. Qin Shuang angrily clenched his teeth. It was already impossible for him to attack Long Fei at this time, so he had to immediately. He shouted, Junior brother Zheng, cover up. They grabbed Chu Qing and ran out. Zhang Yuanhang's gaze tensed up, and he could only stand in place. Long Fei's gaze tensed up. Although he did not know what had happened, he could hear from Chu Qing's voice that she had just been beaten up. F***ck. Long Fei was immediately annoyed. The idea moved. The Zhenshulong sword was immediately taken back. Long Fei looked at owner of God's Devil City and asked solemnly, do you know what to do now? Owner of God's Devil City's neck shook, and he said, little bastard from Factory Sec. Someone, come. Close the city gates. Set up a heaven evil formation. His voice was like a bell, directly exploding in the sky above the God's Devil City. Next. The God's Devil City was brightly lit, all the money elites on the streets came out to kill them. Buzz. Buzz. After a few buzzing sounds, a huge black net covered the sky above God's Devil City. The heavenly evil formation. Heaven could not do it, nor could he enter the earth. Owner of God's Devil City stared at Long Fei with the corner of his eyes, revealing a trace of killing intent. The Zhenshulong sword said, Master, he has killing intent towards you. The corners of Long Fei's lips curled up as he smiled in his heart. It's fine, my killing intent towards him has never disappeared. Boom. Boom. The owner of God's Devil City's figure blurred as he stood bare-chested. He directly charged into the darkness with his claws like a dragon, and landed in front of Qin Shuang after a few breaths of time. With a sinister look in his eyes, he said darkly, you bastard from Factory Sect, you think you can escape after coming? While they were talking. When owner of God's Devil City saw Chu Qing, his eyes flashed with lust. What a beautiful girl. I have never tasted a woman from Factory Sect before. Qin Shuang's gaze darkened as he said, owner of God's Devil City, we are the disciples of the Factory Sect's flowing cloud immortal sovereign. If you dare to touch us. Not waiting for him to finish. Bam. Owner of God's Devil City made a claw in the air, and it directly smashed onto Qin Shuang's chest. Qin Shuang was sent flying. The owner of God's Devil City snorted, what a noisy time, scrammed to the side. Then, owner of God's Devil City's figure moved and landed beside Chu Qing. His lecherous eyes flickered, his Adam's apple rolled, and he said, girl, today, this city's main disciple will spoil you well. Do you think you're my ancestor? Do you think you're my ancestor? Owner of God's Devil City was excited. He had never seen a woman as beautiful as Chu Qing. Just like a fairy. His lust dominated everything. Moreover, did not see it in the darkness just now, but he saw it clearly. The reason why Chu Qing gave him a slap was because Chu Qing told him to run. The owner of God's Devil City was extremely perverted, but he was also extremely meticulous. Long Fei's cultivation was not high, but the sword beside him was extremely terrifying. If he wanted to control Long Fei, this woman was probably the key. Senior fellow Qin, a man and a woman, two disciples ran forward to support Qin Shuang. Qin Shuang's chest had a piece of flesh torn out, it was extremely painful, but seeing the beside him with his bare upper body that looked like a fat pig, he was enraged in his heart, and shouted loudly, "Old thief Tian Xie, you dare touch even a single strand of her hair, I will destroy your soul." Ah! Qin Shuang struck with his sword. Meteor shower. The display of the imperial power was extremely thorough. However, a level was a level. The difference was the difference. Without waiting for him to get close, the owner of God's Devil City sneered, "You dare act so arrogantly in front of me with that little cultivation of yours?" Humph. Shock. Boom. A stream of power erupted from the owner of God's Devil City's body. His divine might was like a huge bell, pressing down heavily on Qin Shuang. A loud explosion resounded. Phut! Qin Shuang's entire person was crushed to the point of him kneeling on the ground, as he spat out a mouthful of blood. Senior fellow Qin. The woman moved and also attacked. However, the distance was still 10 meters away, and she was still pressed down by the pressure of the Emperor realm. However, she was not injured, and just could not move. The corners of owner of God's Devil City's mouth curled up, and he laughed sinisterly. "Although she is several levels lower than you, but she can still be considered a high-level goods, and is also a disciple of the Factory sect. She will definitely let me have my fill, ha ha ha." He began to laugh maniacally. Exceptionally excited. The other male disciple turned pale with fright and ran. However, before he could run far, a kick came from the darkness. Bam! He sent them flying with a kick. An old man with an evil smile walked out. He stared at the man on the ground and laughed sinisterly. "I have never tasted the chrysanthemum of a Factory sect disciple, don't worry. Tonight, I will also properly cherish you, Jie Jie." The man was trembling with fear. Not long later, a dozen or so powerhouses rushed over. They were all royal realm. The aura on his body was vigorous. "City Lord, we came late and gave you a fright. City Lord, there are 2 more people over there, they have been surrounded by my men. This bunch of Factory sect's little bastards actually dared to come to our God's Devil City, they're simply looking to die. Ha ha ha. All of the God's Devil City-s of the God's Devil City had come over. This time, and the others would not kill the owner of God's Devil City, they would not even have a chance to escape. Chu Qing's body trembled slightly, but she was still relatively calm, and said, "Kill us, as long as any of our elders from Factory sect comes, your God's Devil City will be turned into ashes. Killing us won't benefit you in the slightest." Owner of God's Devil City looked at Chu Qing and laughed, "Little darling, don't worry, I definitely won't kill you." With that, he grabbed Chu Qing's chin. Chu Qing felt disgusted and asked, "What are you trying to do?" Qin Shuang also roared angrily, "Take your dirty hands away from me." He liked Chu Qing from the first moment he saw her. He would definitely not allow any man to touch her. However, owner of God's Devil City completely ignored him. A person kneeling on the ground was not qualified to speak. However, at this moment, buzz buzz buzz, a burst of ear-piercing sword hums suddenly exploded. Owner of God's Devil City's gaze tightened and his mind suddenly trembled. He subconsciously released his hand and looked not far away. At the same time, he turned his gaze to the side. The 2 old men nodded slightly and silently hid themselves in the darkness. Long Fei and Zhang Yuanhang walked over. Qin Shuang saw Long Fei and immediately said, "You dog, you are indeed on the same side as God's Devil City, you despicable shameless bastard, this father will not let you go." Long Fei laughed coldly, and said, "You aren't letting me go? I'm so scared. May I ask why you, a person kneeling on the ground, won't let me go?" Do you want to be a ghost and not let me go, or what? Zhang Yuanhang said, Senior fellow Qin, you are all mistaken about him. Qin Shuang coldly snorted, wrong monster? If it weren't for him, would we have ended up like this? Zhang Yuanhang said, Brother Long, he is really not in cahoots with God's Devil City. Just now, he killed quite a number of God's Devil City's guards. If not for him, I'm afraid that all of you would have already died. Qin Shuang's eyes turned sinister as he looked at Long Fei, and laughed coldly. So you're saying that I have to thank him? Fat. Even if I die, I don't need a despicable scumbag like him to save me. Furthermore, he did not believe that Long Fei could save him at all. Long Fei's cultivation was but a small fry in the God's Devil City. How could she save him? Unless he was a grandfather of the owner of God's Devil City. Long Fei laughed. Sure, you're the one who said that. Owner of God's Devil City, then go ahead and kill him. Owner of God's Devil City laughed and said, understood. Immediately, owner of God's Devil City's eyes moved. A black armored guard holding a steel blade walked towards Qin Shuang. Qin Shuang's eyes darkened, and said, Come, if I die, you will all die with me, and you, my factory sect will definitely not let you go. He was trembling. Chu Qing said, Can you save him? Save senior fellow Qin. Zhang Yuanhang also said, Save senior fellow Qin. Long Fei laughed. He just said that even if I die, I don't need to save him. Besides, if he didn't want me to die, why would he kneel on the ground now? You don't think so? Your father's life is very tough. How can I save someone who wants me dead? Unless. Please beg me. Qin Shuang gritted his teeth as he stared at Long Fei. Chu Qing said, Senior fellow Qin, just give in. Qin Shuang's eyes were filled with hatred, his gaze could kill. And what Long Fei wanted was this kind of effect. Wanting him to die. You want to play with him? Who was playing who now? This was worse than killing him. Long Fei smiled faintly. Are you asking for it or not? At this moment, the black armored guard had already walked to Qin Shuang's side. His steel blade moved slightly as it flashed with a cold light. Qin Shuang was extremely frightened. In front of his life and face, he still lived as he was before, and said solemnly, I beg you, please save me. Long Fei said, Is this the tone of someone asking for help? Is there anyone who would beg like that? He continued to play. Buzz. He raised the steel knife. At this moment, Qin Shuang's heart was trembling, and his body was trembling. He no longer had any extra strength to retaliate, and he was still being crushed by the god's might of the Emperor realm. As long as this blade descended, his head would definitely fall to the ground. Thinking of this, he immediately peed his pants in fright. She said anxiously, I beg of you, please save me. I was wrong. Please save me. Long Fei sneered, turned and looked at owner of God's Devil City, and said, Enough, don't kill him. Owner of God's Devil City smiled and said, Brat, if you want me to kill you, then kill me. Do you really take yourself to be my ancestor? Kill. Chapter 2962 Unfair Competition. Chapter 2962 Unfair Competition. Owner of God's Devil City's eyes turned sinister, and his expression became sinister. Give the order. The black armored guard's steel blade fell down heavily. Qin Shuang's eyes were wide open as he let out a miserable scream. Before the saber landed, it first howled like a pig being butchered, as if it would never be able to scream out in the future. Long Fei's brows sunk, and he said, Not obedient. Dragon sword. Buzz. The idea moved, and it flew out in an instant. Shua. A sword pierced through the air. Crack. The steel blade was pierced through by the dragon sword and directly shattered into powder. Then, the black armored guard's heart meridian would be shattered and his 7 orifices would burst into blood and he would die. Qin Shuang, who was under the blade, curled up into a ball. He had never been in such a sorry state before in his life. Owner of God's Devil City's gaze tensed up, and with a flip of his hand, he grabbed onto Chu Qing, directly grabbing him to block in front of him. At the same time, he heavily shouted, Attack! Boom! Boom! In the darkness, the concealed 2 level 8 Monarch powerhouses attacked at the same time. Mutated. Too fast. Everything happened too quickly. to the point that no one could react to it. Long Fei's mind tightened, his right hand moved, heavy sword has no edge. The heavy sword fell down, blocking horizontally. However, even if he reacted in time to block the fatal blow, but the power of level 8 Emperor was too strong, Long Fei quickly slashed backwards. The web of his palm split open, and fresh blood dripped down. His entire arm felt as if it was going numb. His internal organs were also in turmoil. It was extremely uncomfortable. Zhang Yuanhang was directly flung out, as he fell to the ground with heavy injuries, blood continuously spitting out from his mouth. The dragon sword suddenly turned. To return back to Long Fei's side, there is no one more important to you than Long Fei. Not to mention Chu Qing, even if one were to step into the first heaven, he would still not be as important as Long Fei. Because Long Fei was his master. The Zhenshulong sword floated beside Long Fei and said solemnly, "Master, I want to kill them all." Buzz. Boom. When the sword's cry exploded, the sky and earth trembled, and the god's devil city shook even more violently. He was furious. Looking at the blood on Long Fei's hands, the dragon sword was enraged. What a powerful divine treasure. This divine treasure. Possessing his own spiritual consciousness, this sword. Too powerful. Owner of God's Devil City was extremely shocked. He knew in his heart that once the dragon sword breaks out, it was possible that his God's Devil City would be gone. Immediately. Owner of God's Devil City turned his hand, grabbed Chu Qing's throat, and said with a heavy voice, "Stop your sword for me, or I'll kill her." Buzz. 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 The power of a sword chime was unleashed one after another. Now, as long as Long Fei gave the order, the Zhenshulong sword would slaughter everyone. But Long Fei saw that Chu Qing was being controlled, and his heart sank. The idea immediately ordered, "Don't move recklessly." The Zhenshulong sword raged with rage, and said, "Master, he is threatening you." Long Fei said, "Don't move, restrain your power." The Zhenshulong sword was unwilling, but still followed through. The sword hums disappeared. The owner of God's Devil City immediately laughed. Actually, his heart had been trembling just now, because he was unable to confirm whether the Chu Qing in his hands could really threaten Long Fei or not. However, he won the bet. Chu Qing was indeed Long Fei's weakness. Because of this, owner of God's Devil City laughed wildly in a complacent manner. "Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Boy, you want to kill me? You have to have the ability to do so too. Ha ha ha. I hate it when people threaten me the most." Long Fei said as his eyes darkened, "However, I'll give you a chance today. Let us go, I guarantee that you will be very safe." He felt a surge of rage. Chu Qing's kindness attracted Long Fei, so a girl like her could not die so easily. The hearts of men were kind, the world should have more people like Chu Qing. Owner of God's Devil City laughed coldly. "You dog, do you think you want to put your sword on this daddy's neck? If you did not have this sword, would a trash like you be able to intrude into my city lord's mansion? Let you go. Heh heh. Sure, kneel down and kowtow to call me grandpa. If you make me happy, maybe I'll let you go. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha." The surrounding lackeys all began to laugh. Long Fei's eyes turned sinister, his anger became even more intense, and he said faintly, "I gave you a chance. Yo. You want to use that sword of yours to kill me again? I'm so scared. However, if you want to kill me, you have to kill this beautiful little beauty first." Owner of God's Devil City laughed. "Come on, let's fight." Buzz. The sword hummed. Long Fei's idea also moved along. In almost an instant, the Zhenshulong sword pierced through the air and disappeared. Owner of God's Devil City's gaze tightened, his two fingers became even more forceful, and he shouted, "Come, kill me, let's see who will be faster." Chu Qing's face was pale and she could not say a word. Buzz. Long Fei's idea sunk. He could not take this risk. Because he didn't have absolute confidence. At this time, the Zhenshulong sword was floating less than a meter away from Chu Qing. Owner of God's Devil City laughed sinisterly. "Let's see who can be faster. Such a beautiful girl is still a virgin, what a pity." Long Fei clenched his fists tightly, the anger in his heart was boiling, but he was unusually calm, and said, This kind of stalemate will not benefit you, nor will it benefit me. As long as you let us leave, I promise I won't kill you, owner of God's Devil City said coldly. You're right, this kind of stalemate is not good for anyone, but do you want me to let you guys go? Do you think I believe you when I'm 3 years old? Long Fei asked. What do you want? The corners of owner of God's Devil City's mouth hooked up as he said, why not take a gamble? Long Fei said, what do you want to bet? The owner of God's Devil City said, each of you, send out 2 people to compete with each other. We will listen to whoever wins. Of course, your sword cannot participate. Other than this sword, anyone in God's Devil City could defeat Long Fei. Moreover, other than Long Fei and the female disciple, everyone else was injured. 2 people sparring? There aren't enough people, how can they compete? Qin Shuang said solemnly, no, your cultivation is too low, and you are not their match. This is not a fair battle, owner of God's Devil City laughed. This is my territory, I will decide whether it is fair or not. This is your only chance, if you win, you guys leave, if you lose, leave your lives behind. Betting or not. This competition was completely unfair. However, how much in the world is fair? Long Fei looked at the female disciple who was not injured. He only took a glance. The owner of God's Devil City's God Realm warrior power activated. Boom. Poochie. A mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth, and he was immediately severely injured. Now, all of them were severely injured, and no one could accompany Long Fei in the battle. Owner of God's Devil City looked at Long Fei and said, seems like you are going to fight 1 against 2. Ha ha ha. Kid. Do you want to bet or not? Unless he cared about Chu Qing's life or death, Long Fei had no choice. And owner of God's Devil City's goal was Long Fei's death. Once Long Fei died, the dragon sword would be ownerless. As long as he obtained this dragon sword, even if the elders of the Factory sect came, he would not fear them. Betting or not, owner of God's Devil City replied heavily. The people of God's Devil City all revealed proud smiles as they looked at Long Fei. The corner of Long Fei's mouth rose as he smiled. Gamble. Someone is giving us experience, why not? Heh heh. Chapter 2963, Unfair to them. Chapter 2963, Unfair to them fair? It doesn't exist. Long Fei had never thought of the word fair before. To him, it was indeed a little unfair for the other 2 to have dealt with him. It wasn't him, but rather the 2 opposing him were unfair. Owner of God's Devil City never thought that Long Fei would actually agree to it. What was the difference between this and courting death? The trash of the soul realm. The royal realm could be crushed with a finger, but it was still 2 on 1. There was no suspense in this match. Qin Shuang said angrily, are you crazy? Who do you think you are? A single soul realm like you going against 2 level 8 monarchs powerhouses? Did your brain get flooded? I don't agree, I don't agree. Owner of God's Devil City, I don't agree to let him fight, it has nothing to do with me. Next. The 2 disciples hastily said, we don't agree either, we definitely won't place our lives in his hands. Owner of God's Devil City sneered and said, what use is it if you don't agree to my request? I have the final say in this matter. Ha ha ha. To him, victory was certain. Qin Shuang stared straight at Long Fei with extreme hatred, but he had no other choice. Kid, if I were to die, all of this would be because of you. Long Fei didn't even spare a glance at Qin Shuang. If not for Chu Qing, Long Fei would never care about their lives. Chu Qing said faintly, you must be careful. Long Fei nodded and said, I will be careful. Owner of God's Devil City looked at Long Fei and asked, are you ready? Long Fei smiled faintly and said, I've prepared it long ago. The owner of God's Devil City's gaze moved as he looked at the 2 level 8 emperors. The idea moved and said, kill him as fast as possible. Remember, don't leave any energy behind. The 2 old men nodded lightly, a trace of coldness could be seen on their faces. They were just soul realm. They could easily trample and crush them. This kind of trash could not even be considered as an ant in their eyes. At this moment, Long Fei shouted out, and said, about that, there's a question I want to ask you. Owner of God's Devil City asked, Speak, what's the problem? Long Fei said, this competition is a 2v2 match, right? Owner of God's Devil City laughed. That's right, as long as any of them is willing to join in the battle with you. Just as he finished speaking, Qin Shuang said, I don't want to. The other two immediately said, I don't want to either. Not to mention that they were unwilling. Even if they were willing, they would still be severely injured. There was nothing they could do. Owner of God's Devil City laughed proudly. No one is willing. Long Fei said, I have never thought of letting them go together. Look at what the three of them look like. Do you still have any fighting strength? I'd rather have a dog with them, or at least a dog can bark, and there's nothing they can do. It was a fierce ridicule. The three of them had ugly expressions on their faces. Owner of God's Devil City said, since it's not them, are you courting death? Long Fei said, I brought my own people. Owner of God's Devil City asked, you brought people? Who is it? Long Fei said, just tell me if it's okay. Forget about people. Who can my cultivation in the soul realm bring to this place? The owner of God's Devil City smiled faintly, and said, that's right, with your cultivation, you can't bring many people along, and judging from your relationship, you guys aren't people from the Fatry sect, so it's impossible for the disciples from the Fatry sect to have such low cultivations like you. However, although your cultivation is not high, you are stronger than them. Imperceptibly, another slap landed on the faces of Qin Shuang and the others. It was burning. It was very uncomfortable. The owner of God's Devil City was not afraid of Long Fei bringing out people who would gather according to the group. He could only make friends with people with similar cultivation. It was impossible for him to know some almighty powerhouse. Not to mention, this was the God's Devil City, his territory. Where could Long Fei call people from? It doesn't exist. Long Fei said, all right, then let's begin. Owner of God's Devil City was startled, and said, start? Didn't you bring someone with you? Won't you call him out? Long Fei laughed. They will come out soon. Owner of God's Devil City laughed coldly and said, wait? Ha ha ha. Do you think you have a chance to wait? All right. Attack. Suddenly, the two level 8 Emperor powerhouse moved. Although Long Fei was not even considered as an ant in their eyes, they still followed Owner of God's Devil City's orders completely. He wanted to unleash his strongest power, not giving Long Fei the slightest of chances. The two of them moved, attacking from left and right. His speed was like a gale, and at the same time, two enormous pressuring auras came crushing down like two mountains pressing down. Boom, boom, boom. The air continued to emit explosive sounds. Too fast. Too fierce. Unstoppable. Owner of God's Devil City laughed. Ha ha ha. Prepare to die. Little beauty, you're mine now. And this divine treasure, you're mine too. Owner of God's Devil City was extremely excited, as if he had gotten everything. Chu Qing stared at Long Fei, not daring to say a word, as he was extremely worried. Qin Shuang's face was filled with contempt. You overestimate yourself. Trash. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Extreme resentment. Looking at the two balls of enormous power charging towards Long Fei, their hearts turned cold. This was not giving Long Fei a chance at all. There was no hope at all. Those people from the God's Devil City also laughed. With the help of the two great protectors, how could a mere soul realm scum possibly survive? An existence that could instantly kill someone. No one favored Long Fei. However, just as the two great protectors were about to rush to Long Fei's side, all of a sudden, one of the black robes of the blood cloud moved slightly, and a blood-red light descended. His eyes blurred. Buzz. All of a sudden, it was as if the entire world had fallen into an unfathomable illusion. The two head protectors retracted their powers in an instant and stood rooted to the spot, not moving at all, as though they were 250 years old. Time seemed to stop. What's going on? What's going on? Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Owner of God's Devil City shouted crazily. However, the two head protectors acted as if they didn't hear anything. At this moment, their world was filled with an incomparable pain as their throats were tightly gripped. But they couldn't struggle. It was like watching himself die little by little. Drip, 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 drip. He was scared to the point of peeing. Urine dripped from his crotch. It was also at this time that Long Fei's right hand slightly moved, and the heavy sword fell with no edges. He slightly raised his eyes, looked at owner of God's Devil City, and said, "This match is truly very unfair. It's unfair to them." As soon as he finished speaking, the heavy sword in Long Fei's hand suddenly moved, his figure flashed forward like lightning. Boom! It passed through his body. There was no pain. There was more relief in his eyes, as if he had walked out from the pain of death. Bam! He fell to the ground. His chest was torn open and fresh blood spurted out from it. He struggled for a moment before speaking up. The HP on top of his head dropped to 0. Die. The system sounded out. Ding. Chapter 2964, Forcing Lousy to Fury. Chapter 2964, Forcing Lousy to Fury. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing God's Devil City's protector for obtaining 38,000 experience points, 30,000 true spiritual value, and 1 universal value. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining. A few junk dropped. Long Fei did not even look at him, and leisurely walked to the side of the other chief protector. The two of them glanced at owner of God's Devil City and the corners of their mouths curled. Ha ha ha. Laughing wildly, the heavy sword moved once again. One slash. His head flew off and his body fell to the ground. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing God's Devil City's protector for obtaining 38,000 experience points, 30,000 true spiritual value, and 1 universal value. Congratulations, player. A few more junk. Long Fei took it back together. Long Fei looked at owner of God's Devil City and said, "You've lost." In just a few seconds, the two King's level 8 protectors had been killed just like that, as if they were in a dream. That's not right. He couldn't even dream of such a terrifying dream. It was too scary. His scalp was going numb. Not only was it those people from the God's Devil City, even Qin Shuang's eyes were wide opened as he looked at Long Fei. He couldn't find any words to replace his shock. It was as if Long Fei was a huge mountain that soared into the sky. High, big, mighty, fierce. It was as if he was invincible in this world. Qin Shuang always thought that Long Fei was a trash, a country bumpkin, a trash of the soul realm, but now, compared to Long Fei, he felt that he was only trash, a country bumpkin, a piece of trash from the royal realm. It was too hard. This wasn't slapping him in the face, this was kicking him onto the ground and mercilessly stomping on his face, and he didn't have any way of resisting. Just from that move just now, if it had been him, he would have also been instantly killed, or even more miserably. The other man and woman also did the same, as they looked at Long Fei like he was a god. He was speechless. Chu Qing laughed softly as his eyes narrowed, making them look like 2 crescent moons. Beautiful beyond compare. Owner of God's Devil City's throat was dry. He looked at the cold man beside Long Fei. He had never seen this kind of outfit before, nor this kind of power. It was not the power of the universal realm at all. Owner of God's Devil City's heart slightly trembled. No, no, impossible. You, how could you? Long Fei did not pay any attention to him. You've lost, release him. Owner of God's Devil City's gaze suddenly tightened, his previously relaxed hand grabbed onto Chu Qing's throat again as he said in a heavy voice, "You are a demon. This match is not counted." Long Fei smiled faintly, and said, "Not counted? Sure, then please send more people out to fight me. I'll take as many as I can and you guys can all come at me together." "I don't care anyway. Mongoose, can you?" The ferret replied coolly, "Sure." The sound was like death itself. It had to be said that the weasel was very cool. If it wasn't for the need, Long Fei wouldn't be willing to summon it out. Owner of God's Devil City said heavily, "You're the one who said that. Attack. Let's attack together. Kill him." However, no one dared to step forward. If an Emperor level 8 was instantly killed like that, wouldn't it be the same if they went up? Moreover, they were all frightened by the weasel. This cold man was like a devil. Owner of God's Devil City's eyes flashed with anger, and he roared, Didn't you hear my order? He's just a soul realm, he can't handle all of you. At this time, an elder said, Mayor, why don't you come by yourself? Exactly. Call us to do everything, we don't have any benefits. If it wasn't for the fact that your cultivation is the highest, would we have followed you? Go on yourself. I heard that the factory sect only wants your head, they didn't say they want our heads. Yes, I heard that too. It's all because you're bullying men and killing and looting. We are all pure xiao by dishes, have you done anything at all? The wall was pushed by everyone. Even if you are the mayor, at this moment, no one is willing to stand on your side. The ferret's power was terrible. They had no idea how to deal with it. Owner of God's Devil City was extremely furious. You're rebelling? You bunch of trash. Humph. His body slightly moved, and with one hand on Chu Qing's throat and the other on Chu Qing's back, he hid behind Chu Qing. When the Zhenshulong sword saw him move, it also followed suit and maintained a certain distance from him. Owner of God's Devil City said solemnly, Brat, get your sword away from me or I'll kill her immediately. Long Fei's gaze darkened as he said, like I said before, I hate people who threaten me the most in my entire life. Don't think that I have no other choice. Very unhappy. Owner of God's Devil City said coldly, you better not make me go crazy, I'm someone who can do anything and do anything. Even if I die, she's got to die. While they were talking, he exerted even more force. Chu Qing was out of breath, and his face had turned even paler. F***ck. Long Fei cursed, the anger in his heart flaring up, he could no longer control it. Owner of God's Devil City said sinisterly, now move your sword away for me, immediately. The muscles at the corner of Long Fei's eyes twitched, his killing intent becoming denser. Who? All right. Long Fei moved his idea and the Zhenshulong sword returned to his side with a swoosh. Long Fei said, let her go now, I can spare your life. Humph. Ha ha ha. Spare me and not die. Boy, who do you think you are? You think you are invincible with so many treasures on you? Aren't they still under my control? When owner of God's Devil City saw that Long Fei had compromised with him, he became even more excited. As long as he could control Chu Qing, there was nothing Long Fei could do to him. Then, owner of God's Devil City said solemnly, now, I order you to kneel down. Long Fei's eyes darkened, and said, you're F***king eager to take an inch, aren't you? The owner of God's Devil City sneered, that's right, this daddy here is going overboard, what's wrong? Kneel or not? If you don't kneel, you'll never see her again, ha ha ha. Fury. The killing intent was dense. I'm really very unhappy. Owner of God's Devil City said proudly. His dirty hands could not even forgive Chu Qing, and was now trying to take Chu Qing's life. Long Fei's pupils contracted. The owner of God's Devil City roared, kneel down, do you hear me? Ha ha ha. Chu Qing was speechless, and continued to shake his head. Kneel. Kneel. Owner of God's Devil City's voice was constantly getting louder and more excited. As long as Long Fei kneeled down, he could propose an even more excessive request. He also understood the weight of the card in his hand. Owner of God's Devil City was betting too. However, he knew that he had won the bet. The more Long Fei suffered, the greater his chance of winning. You dog, I told you to kneel down. Owner of God's Devil City roared. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Long Fei looked up and said, kneel before your 18 generations of ancestors. Boom. With a move of his right hand, the killing sword flew out. Chapter 2965 Explosion Attribute, Power of Creation. Chapter 2965 Explosion Attribute, Power of Creation. Whoosh. The killing sword moved and entered the void. At the same time, Long Fei's idea sank, dragon sword. In an instant, the two eyes of the owner of God's Devil City shone with killing sword S. The sword was as thin as a dagger. One sword was like a raging dragon. Once the two swords appeared, they instantly pierced through the void. At the same time, Long Fei's idea S were split into two. Swish swish. Owner of God's Devil City's gaze tensed up, revealing a sinister look. You want me to die? Then she'll go and die for me first. With her accompanying me on the path to the underworld, I earned a lot. Don't worry. I will still take good care of you once I get to the underworld, ha ha ha. The owner of God's Devil City himself was very clear that he was not a match for the Genshulong sword. When the Genshulong sword pierced over, he knew that he would not survive. Thus, he was completely willing to go all out. Ha ha ha. Owner of God's Devil City laughed out loud. However, just as he was laughing maniacally, a small sword pierced through the back of his head. Blood gushed out. His mouth was full of words. The pain was excruciating, and a damage value floated above his head. 394.7293 but his HP wasn't low, he wasn't dead. The limit of the killing sword? The limit of the power of the ancient inheritance? Not really. The power of the Mahayana realm was extremely strong, but Long Fei was unable to unleash all of its power. But the owner of God's Devil City was a emperor strongman, so a single slash couldn't kill him in an instant. Long Fei also understood. However, the Genshulong sword caught the attention of the owner of God's Devil City and focused on its attacks. A single strike succeeded. In that instant, in that moment of incomparable pain, a person's instinctive reaction would be to save themselves instead of to kill people. Owner of God's Devil City was the same. He was in incomparable pain, and blood was flowing out of his throat crazily. At that moment, it could be said that in a tenth of a second, he was struggling in pain. When he finally reacted, his 2 fingers moved and he roared. Blood gushed out of his throat as he muttered, "Let's die together." Bam! Shua! Before he could finish, owner of God's Devil City's head flew out. Bam! It was nailed to the wall not far away. Half of his body was still standing there, unmoving. With a single sword blow, his head exploded. The remaining HP on the top of his head also instantly bottomed out. Cough cough. Chu Qing let out a heavy cough, causing Long Fei's heart to abruptly loosen up, as he sat down on the ground, paralyzed, gasping for air. At this moment, Long Fei was completely drenched. At the same time, he controlled both the Genshulong sword and the killing sword, overdrawing his body. He was completely unable to control the release of the 2 types of power. Moreover, at that moment, his mind was tense to the point that it would break with a slight bang. It was too uncomfortable. He was sweating profusely. Long Fei gasped for breath heavily. Hoo. Fortunately, it was a success. The system sounded out. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for killing owner of God's Devil City for obtaining 20,000 experience, 180,000 true spirit and 1 universal value. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Evil Blade. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining Evil Spirit Robe. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining the Evil Spirit Bead. Congratulations to player Long Fei for obtaining various types of almost half a demon set. However, they were all immortal martial level weapons, and even Holy Artifact had not reached that level. Long Fei reclaimed everything the moment he moved his hand, and 20 million experience points was transferred into his account. The system sounded out again. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for leveling up. Current level, Celestial Phenomenon Ascendant. Ha ha ha. I leveled up again. Awesome. Long Fei let out a heavy shout. The feeling of leveling up was too comfortable, and a warm feeling flowed out from his body as all the attributes in his body changed. The power of Celestial Phenomenon was channeled into his body. Celestial Phenomenon Realm, the strength of 1 Celestial Phenomenon Ascendant. He clenched his fists. Roar. It was like the roar of an ancient mammoth. Just as Long Fei's heart was about to contract, the system beep sounded out once again. There's more. Long Fei became excited. Ding. Congratulations to player Long Fei for slaying the 10 evils. Within the system interface, a rainbow-colored liquid quietly floated in the air. It was serene and full of kindness. The power of good karma. Long Fei's heart sank. The power of creation is that awesome? In other novels, only almighty powerhouses have such things. I didn't expect it to come out. Let's see what the attributes are. Item: the power of creation, unique, attack, none speed, none special strength. After a player uses it, they can gain 10,000 lucky value, 10,000 human value and 10,000 charm value in 3 minutes. Special strength: the ability to revive the dead when used by people other than players. Special strength: 10,000 times better than normal. Special hint: do not use it to do evil, or else it will not trigger any attribute. Looking at the description of the power of good luck, Long Fei's mouth was so wide open that it could fit an egg inside. 10,000 lucky value points. 10,000 points in luck value, 10,000 points in charm value. Oh my god, is Lousy going to be so damn handsome? Isn't this attribute too abnormal? More than perverted. He was a complete freak. Not only could it be used by others, it could also be used by others. What did this mean? That meant he had an extra life. Incredible, incredible. System, I have to say, your reward is as perfect as an explosion. Ha ha ha. I like it. Long Fei was so excited that he was about to jump. This made him extremely happy. With the power of good karma, there will definitely be other powers of karma as well. It seems like there are still many things that have yet to be developed from the Grand Mist system. Time to play, Long Fei muttered. At this moment, Chu Qing's expression recovered slightly as he walked to Long Fei's side and said, "Thank you." Long Fei recovered her expression and said, "You are so beautiful, there is no need to thank me." Chu Qing smiled faintly. At this time, Qin Shuang also climbed up with much difficulty. He was very unhappy with Long Fei, and at one point, he even wanted to get rid of Long Fei. If not for Long Fei, the few of them would all die here. Furthermore, the strength that Long Fei had displayed was too strong, so the powerhouse had to respect him. Qin Shuang replied heavily, "Thank you. For saving my life, I will never forget it." It was from the bottom of his heart. Although the other 2 disciples were unwilling, they still bowed and said, "Thank you, for saving my life, I will never forget." In the distance, Zhang Yuanhang also said weakly, "Thank you, Brother Long, for saving my life." The feeling of being thanked was simply too great. However, all of these were not the main point. The main point was that Long Fei was overjoyed. What about them? How should I deal with it? Qin Shuang swept his gaze across the people in God's Devil City who were still in a daze. Chu Qing said, "Owner of God's Devil City is dead, and we have completed our mission, so let them go. What do you think?" He looked at Long Fei. Long Fei faintly smiled and said, "Whatever you say is fine." Of course, he had to listen to the words of the beautiful women. However, even if you want to hear, experience points is still a must. Long Fei was not the kind of person who would forget everything once he had a beauty, let alone this was a huge amount of experience. How could he let go of it? The idea moved. Dragon Sword, you will stay to finish. Chapter 2966 Enrichment of Experience. Chapter 2966 Enrichment of Experience. If a girl wanted to take a bath, she had to have a lot of experience. Long Fei's personality was that when using both hands to grab, both hands would become hard. Watching Long Fei's group of 6 walk out of the God's Devil City, the people from the God's Devil City all let out sighs of relief. A good person. Good people. Stupid. Ha ha ha. These lousy, inexperienced little scumbags simply do not understand the dangers of the world. If it wasn't for that brat, all of these trash from the factory sect would have died here. Elder, is tomorrow's plan going to change? Should we retract it a little? Tomorrow at Chen Family Town, I will loot everything clean. Now that the city lord is dead, from today onwards I will be the owner of God's Devil City. Ha ha ha. Reform. Become a new person. There was a saying, dogs can't stop eating shit. They were evil by nature, and even if they were spared once, they would not change. Just as they were talking joyously, ridiculing Long Fei and the rest were retarded, a sword hum suddenly exploded out. Buzz. Everyone slowly turned their heads to look. Instantly, everyone's gaze tightened and their eyes trembled. Bam! Bam! My lord, we were wrong. We were wrong. The few elders heavily shouted, "It's just a mere broken sword. I don't believe that he's that strong. Brothers, let's attack him together and give him to me." Not waiting for him to finish, the Genshulong sword moved. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sword intent filled the sky, at 360 degrees. It was an entire circle, and all of it was filled with sword images. A sound rang out in the air. Dragon sword, cut. Boom. With just a thought, all of the sword shadows were killed. At the same time, the Genshulong sword flew out, and started harvesting in the god's devil city. Su, su, su. Harvest after harvest. The owner of God's devil city screamed one after another. In the distance. What kind of business? Chu Qing turned his head to look in the direction of the god's devil city and said softly. The system beep's voice resounded crazily in Long Fei's mind. It gathered its thoughts extremely quickly, and his experience points had also risen along the way. After all, they survived. Chu Qing laughed lightly, and said, "Humans are good, I hope that they can change and start anew from now on, and be good people. Kind." Chu Qing's eyes were filled with innocence and goodwill. She was as pure as a white lotus. This was what attracted Long Fei the most. Qin Shuang said, "Qing'er, this world is not as good as you think. You spared the evil people of God's devil city today, so many people will suffer tomorrow because of this." Zhang Yuanhang added, "The people in the God's devil city are all heinous criminals, if not the commoners would not have gone to the factory sect for help from such a distance. It was because of the help of these commoners that the factory sect gave the order. And because of these orders, they had a mission. In a large sect. On the blessings side. This was the responsibility of the sect." Long Fei smiled slightly, and said, "Perhaps they will really change. Even if we don't change them, they won't be able to do anything to us." Qin Shuang looked at Long Fei. He did not know why, but ever since he came out of God's devil city, he had felt that Long Fei was just too mysterious. Even though his cultivation did not seem high, the divine treasures on his body kept appearing one after another. Fighting with such a person was too terrifying. Even if your cultivation is high, but once he goes berserk, he could even kill you with a godly weapon. Then again, Long Fei saved them, saved Chu Qing. No matter how unhappy he was with Long Fei, the powerhouse was the law and everything. He was completely convinced. Buzz. With a light sound in the air, the Genshulong sword returned to Long Fei's side. 2 days later. In an open space. Qin Shuang took out the flying shuttle and asked, "Big Brother Long, where are you going?" In these 2 days of contact, Long Fei went from being a country bumpkin and trash in their mouths to the current Big Brother Long. Other than feeling admiration for Long Fei's fighting prowess, he also paid his respects to Long Fei's barbecue meat. Qin Shuang said, "Actually, you are not in Liu Jiao village, right?" Long Fei said, "Since Liu Jiao village is destroyed, there is no need for me to return. My fairy city has a distant expression. I want to go to Fairy City." Fairy City? Chu Qing became excited and said, "Senior fellow Qin, it's been a long time since we went to the Fairy City to play. We just happen to have a few days left before we submit our mission. Let's go play, Master will not know." Hee hee. Zhang Yuanhang also said, "I also agree. I am going to the city to buy a few things." "We'll go too." Shui and Wu Bin said at the same time. Long Fei felt grateful in his heart. Actually, there was no need for them to go to the fairy city at all. Qin Shuang laughed. "Good, I also want to trade for a good weapon, then I'll go take a look." "Let's go." Big Brother Long Fei still hasn't come back? It was unknown how many times Su had asked. She had lost a lot of weight in the past half-month. Lan Mai was the same. Tan Depao shook his head and said, "The Xianwu Pavilion did not give the result. Not only did the boss not return, the Xianwu Pavilion Lord did not too. Moreover, there's a rumor outside that the Xianwu Pavilion Lord is dead." Su and Lan Mai's gaze tightened as they asked, "Then what about Long Fei?" "It was the Xianwu Pavilion Lord who took him away. How is he now?" Tan Depao replied, "There's no news about boss." "No way." Lan Mai instantly became nervous. "I'm going to look for him." Su immediately said, "I'm coming too." As the two people spoke, They were about to leave the courtyard, but were stopped by Tan Dapao, and said, "You can't go, there are Wu family's secret sentries outside the Xianwu pavilion, and they're keeping an eye on you every day. If you guys leave, it's too dangerous." The boss said that I must protect you. Tan Dapao was also worried in his heart. He couldn't wait to fly out of the fairy city to find Long Fei, but he did not. He could not leave so easily, otherwise Su Su and Lan Mai would be in danger. The most important thing was, the news of the Xianwu Pavilion Lord's death spread like wildfire, causing the Wu family to become restless. If the Xianwu Pavilion Lord really was dead, then the Wu family would definitely make a move against the Xianwu Pavilion. After all, Long Fei crippled Wu Tianlong's lifeblood in the Xianwu Pavilion. With the Wu family's personality, they would definitely take revenge. He couldn't let the two of them leave either. Tan Dapao said, "Even if you go out to look, where can you go? We don't even know where our boss is. The only thing we can do now is to wait. Then let's go ask the Xianwu Pavilion elders for an explanation." Lan Mai said, "They must know where the Xianwu Pavilion Lord has gone to. As long as there is an address, we will go look. I don't want to wait like this." Every day was torture. When Long Fei left, her heart hung heavy every single day. Su Su was the same. Tan Dapao said, "I'll go and ask, you guys stay here and don't go out. Young master, those three are still hiding in Xianwu Pavilion. I haven't come out even once in the past half-month." Wu Tianlong squinted his eyes. His crotch was still aching, and he asked, "Has the death of the Xianwu Pavilion Lord been confirmed?" An elder said lightly, "It should be true." The corner of Wu Tianlong's mouth curled up as he let out a cold laugh. Chapter 2967 Internal Disturbance in Xianwu Pavilion. Chapter 2967 Internal Disturbance in Xianwu Pavilion. The people of the Wu family wanted to know if the Xianwu Pavilion Lord was still alive or not. Similarly, Xianwu Pavilion was also investigating. "How is it? Have you found anything?" In the hall in the backyard of Xianwu Pavilion, an elder walked in and Yi Qingshan immediately asked in an urgent voice. The elder's forehead tightened. When the crowd saw his expression, their hearts turned cold. The high-grade immortal weapons of the Xianwu Pavilion were all forged by the Xianwu Pavilion Lord. If he lacked these high-grade immortal weapons, the Xianwu Pavilion might not be able to hold on. After all, for an arms pavilion to produce ordinary weapons and to have high-level weapons, that was the only way to guarantee its status. Moreover, there was an unwritten rule for all sorts of goods in Fairy City: challenge. The place that sold spirit pills would compete with alchemy. The place that sold weapons was to challenge equipment forging. The loser would give up his land, sign an unequal treaty, or merge. No one dared to challenge the Xianwu Pavilion Lord at his doorstep. Not only because of his cultivation and refining strength, but also because his mysterious relationship with the Fatri sect. But now, it was unknown whether the Xianwu Pavilion Lord was dead or alive, and this made all those forces in the outside world who wanted to annex the Xianwu Pavilion restless. Especially the Wu family. It could be said that they had come here 3 days ago to customize advanced-level immortal weapons. If he could not hand over his immortal weapon on time, then the reputation of the Xianwu Pavilion would come to an end. Yi Qingshan let out a heavy breath, and said, "If there's anything to say, then say it." That elder slightly said, "I can't find out whether Grand Court is dead or alive, but I know why Grand Court is going there this time." All the elders looked at him. Grand Court is going to participate in the gathering of the divine weapons. This is the mission of the God's Design Attic. If you can appraise a divine weapon attribute, you will be eligible to enter the God's Design Attic. Everyone was shocked. To refiners like them, the God's Design Attic was like a shrine. It was the highest goal they had ever pursued in their lives. His eyes were blazing. God's Design Attic was too high and unreachable, it was too far away. What was the result? Yi Qingshan's eyes also flashed with a strange light. Like the other refiners, his goal in life was to enter the God's Design Attic. But they didn't even have the qualifications to be invited to participate. Even Xianwu Pavilion only barely qualified because of their relationship with the Fatri sect. The elder shook his head and said, I don't know either, but the pavilion master of the sea tempering pavilion has not returned. The pavilion master of the Lei Gang pavilion and the dozen or so refining chief master S within the western regions, all of them are genius artificers from the past 100 years, none of them have returned. What? What happened? Not a single one. In the hall, the faces of the elders were all gloomy and filled with astonishment. In the ocean refining pavilion, Lei Gang pavilion was an extremely famous weapon refining great clan of the western regions. They held extremely high statuses, and even the Xianwu pavilion was not as powerful as them. The dozen or so grandmasters of refining had all disappeared at the same time. This was too unbelievable. It could be said that it would have an enormous impact on the entire refining world of western regions. Yi Qingshan said, I heard that the God's Design Attic only accepts a maximum of 9 disciples every year. There are only one in each of the realms in the primordial 9 regions. How could so many master refiners disappear in one night? God's Design Attic would not accept so many people. An elder said, the only possibility is something's happened. Everyone shivered. The elder said, I am not sure about the specifics, but I heard that the sea tempering pavilion selected a successor from within. Seems like the rumors are true. Our grand court is afraid. Everyone's heart sank as they sat on their chairs, unable to speak. At the same time, their brains were also thinking of another problem. Since the Xianwu Pavilion S of the Xianwu Pavilion were no longer present, then giving a seat to them. Then again, the Xianwu Pavilion was fighting for gold every day. A single immortal weapon could sell for several million and up to 10 million grand mist crystals. To anyone, this was a huge temptation. Half a moment later, a white-haired old man stood up and said, Xianwu Pavilion cannot live without an owner for a day, we should also make some preparations. Yi Qingshan immediately replied, Grand Court's fate is unknown, to do this at this point in time, I'm afraid it's not suitable. Why not? If the Grand Court can return, then he is still the Grand Court of the Xianwu Pavilion. If he can't, then our headquarters can wait for a lifetime, right? Right now, Xianwu Pavilion has a mountain of orders in the most days, so we should at least think of a way to settle them, right? I agree with Elder Yang's proposal to elect a new pavilion master. As soon as he finished speaking, another few elders also agreed, I agree too. I agree. Xianwu Pavilion can't do without a leader. Here, Elder Yang has the most experience, and he has also stepped into the 9th stage of the immortal stage. He is considered one of the top master refiners among us, and is qualified to become a grand court in the end. If you say so, I don't agree. Elder Yang is not bad, but Elder Guo isn't bad either. He has to have experience, and most importantly, his refining realm is just a bit higher than Elder Yang's. Pa. An elder slammed the table and stood up. Elder Yu, what do you mean by this? The other elder didn't dare to be weak. He shouted, Elder Ju, what is the meaning of this? In an instant, the main hall was in chaos. He raised his sleeves as if he wanted to fight. At this time, an assistant walked to the entrance of the hall. Clan Elder, Tan Depao is here again. His voice was quiet for a moment. One of the clan elders bellowed, Get that trash from the East Imperial City to get the hell out of here. He keeps asking questions every day. Who the hell does he think he is? And then, the hall was once again in an uproar. Yi Qingshan shook his head and sighed, then walked out. Elder Yi, what's the situation? Tan Depao asked anxiously. Yi Qingshan looked at Tan Depao and said, Canon, I will tell you the truth. Brother Long Fei is most likely not alive. You guys should not go to the factory sect to participate in the selection. The Wu family will not let you go. Furthermore, the Wu family will not let you go easily. Go back and pack up. I will think of a way for you to leave. Impossible. Tan Depao's gaze tightened, and said, My boss has experienced many things, something can never happen to him. Yi Qingshan said, This is not a small place like East Imperial City. It was not that he looked down on the East Imperial City, but that he did not say that the Xianwu Pavilion could not return, so why would Long Fei return? It was simply impossible. Moreover, If it wasn't for the fact that Long Fei helped them appraise the sword of War God, and if Yi Qingshan was grateful in his heart, he wouldn't have helped Tan Depao. It wouldn't have been an easy task to arrange for them to leave. All right, that's it. Go back and make some preparations. Wait for my notification. Yi Qingshan walked out in large strides, and after walking a few steps, he muttered, I wonder if he'll be able to escape. He wasn't sure. However, he would do his best. Tan Depao stood in place, his eyes stared straight ahead as he muttered to himself, Boss will definitely be fine, definitely not, absolutely not. Let's not talk about the fairy city, even if he was in the God's tribe, I can guarantee that nothing would happen to him, so how could a mere fairy city stop him? Chapter 2968, Finally Back. Chapter 2968, Finally Back. Good news. Young master, good news. At the Wu residence. A lackey hurriedly ran in. In Wu Tianlong's room, the backs of the two women were slapped until their flesh was split open, and they cried softly, Who's useless? Who's useless? You think I'm useless? His eyes were glaring furiously and his entire body was trembling with rage. Facing two women who were still naked, Wu Tianlong did not react at all. He hated it. Incomparable hatred. In his mind, he couldn't wait to pinch Long Fei to pieces. Young master, good news. The little minion Luo Chong rushed into the room. When he saw this scene, his expression changed and he immediately lowered his head, pretending that he didn't see anything. The whole Wu family knew that Wu Tianlong could not handle matters regarding him. Only Wu Tianlong himself did not know about it, but his eyes darkened, staring straight at the small fry Luo, he said, If it is not good news, I will take your dog life. Speak. Xiao Bu Luo's body trembled, his face paled slightly as he said, Xianwu Pavilion, the elders of the Xianwu Pavilion are helping the Grand Court get the upper hand. It should be. It should be. Xianwu Pavilion should be dead. In addition, I received news that not only the Xianwu Pavilion S, but also the Grand Court S and more than a dozen other master refiners have disappeared. I heard that they were attacked by the Devil Sect. Ha ha ha. All right. Wu Tianlong immediately became excited, his eyes sinister, he gnashed his teeth and said, Trash from East Imperial City, let me see how long you can hide for. I can't feel good. I want you to pay 1,000 times, 1,000 times. Immediately, Wu Tianlong let out a heavy cry, and said, Call everyone here, smooth it out with me. Ha ha ha. He had finally arrived at this moment. Long Fei knelt in front of him and begged. Su Su and Lan Mai, the two women, begged him to forgive them. However, without waiting for Wu Tianlong to come out of the room. Cough cough. Two coughs sounded. Wu Tianlong shuddered and immediately retracted his ruthless aura, bowing as he said, Father, the leader of the Wu family, Wu Ba. Behind him were two old men, one was Wu Tianlong's uncle, Wu Zhong. The other was the elder refining that the Wu family worshipped. A master refiner above the immortal grade. Wu Ba said slightly, Sky Dragon, where are you going? Either you don't do it or you do it yourself. It's the same when you're stepping on people. Do you understand? Wu Tianlong was a little confused. He looked at his father and muttered, Father, I. Wu Ba scoffed coldly. He was truly furious at this good-for-nothing son of his. If he wasn't surnamed Wu and wasn't his son, he would have slapped him right away. Wu Ba let out a long breath and said, Bring Uncle Zhong and Elder He along. What Uncle Zhong will give you to do, just eat the Xianwu Pavilion first and you can punish them whatever you want them to do. This time, Wu Tianlong understood. He immediately became excited and said, Dad, I got it. Ha ha ha. You dog, let's see how I'll kill you this time. Wu Tianlong laughed sinisterly. With the death of Grand Court, no one would be a match for Wu Zhong. Furthermore, with He Zun as a master refiner, Xianwu Pavilion can do whatever he wants to do so. Let's go. Go to Xianwu Pavilion. Wu Tianlong took large strides forward. Wu Ba watched as Wu Tianlong and the others walked out of the Wu residence with a faint smile. With his Wu family's character, they would definitely take revenge. His son's life was in ruins, this was slapping the Wu family's face, It was slapping Wu Bie's face. How could he not take revenge? Then again, revenge was one part of it, while annexation of the Xianwu Pavilion was another part of it. If they could swallow the Xianwu Pavilion, then the Wu family's power would be even stronger in the Fairy City. At least he could monopolize half of the Fairy City's weapon market. This was also the reason why Wu Bie had been paying attention to the Xianwu Pavilion. His news had come here even faster than Wu Qianlong, and also, he was 100% certain that all the weapons crafting masters who had gone to the Divine Weapon Appraisal Assembly had all died. There was no mistake to have his men at Devil Sect. Our Wu clan will definitely get stronger, ha ha ha. Wu Bie laughed out loud. Xianwu Pavilion. In the rear courtyard, 2 crafting furnaces were crazily burning. Yang Kong and Guoyang were both refining weapons with all their might, their true souls were surging and their auras were exploding. It could be said that they were even using up all of their strength. This competition would decide who the Xianwu Pavilion-s were. No one dared to be negligent. He was going all out, not holding back at all. The levels of the two were about the same. It could be said that regardless of who was superior, it would all depend on who performed better. From the looks of it, Yang Kong's control was better. The temperature of the fire was controlled very steadily without any fluctuations. However, his refining techniques was following the normal procedure. There was nothing special about it. Even if he succeeded in refining it, it would only be an ordinary immortal weapon. Guoyang's words made a strange sound. He was full of the spirit of adventure. If he succeeded, he would be able to completely crush Yang Kong. If he failed, this immortal weapon would be ruined. In the courtyard, the elders on both sides were also holding their breaths and trying their best to decide who would win and who would lose. It would determine their position in Xianwu Pavilion in the future. An hour had passed. The 2 blacksmiths' true souls had already been exhausted to the limit. It was also the most important moment. However, at this moment, boom! With an explosive sound, he kicked the Xianwu Pavilion's door flying out. Wu Qianlong walked into the Xianwu Pavilion and roared, "All of you, come out and die." 2 employees of the Xianwu Pavilion quickly walked over and asked, "Young Master Wu, what do you want to do?" "What for?" "Fuck you father, fuck your mother, fuck your ancestors, you little trash, do you have the qualifications to speak to me? Get out of my way." Wu Qianlong replied heavily. Luo Feng and the other 2 immediately rushed up and kicked on the ground. Wu Qianlong also walked to the backyard and watched the refining competition in the courtyard. He smiled excitedly and said, "Oh, you started it yourself? Wu Qianlong, what are you planning to do?" Yi Qingshan hurriedly walked over. Wu Qianlong smiled faintly and said, "What are you doing?" "It's very simple, I want to challenge artifact forging. I want to eat this Xianwu Pavilion of yours." As soon as he finished speaking, the elders were stunned. This was especially true for the 2 elders who were in the midst of refining their weapons. At the same time, they saw the master refiner He Zun, whom the Wu family consecrate was even more skilled than them, and felt anxious in their hearts. Their true souls immediately became chaotic. Bang, bang. 2 loud sounds. Simultaneously, the furnace exploded. Wu Qianlong laughed like a blossoming flower, "Ha ha ha. The furnace is exploding. This old man will make all of you kneel in front of me today." In another place. Huff. "I'm finally back. I almost couldn't come back." The moment Long Fei got off the flying shuttle, he finally relaxed. Chu Qing could not wait any longer. "Quickly, bring me to meet those 2 sisters." Chapter 2969 Refining Fire. Chapter 2969 Refining Fire Xianwu Pavilion. Both of them failed when the crafting furnace exploded. This was still secondary. The most important thing was that both of them had suffered significant internal injuries. It was impossible for them to refine another weapon. Then again, He Zun's skill in artifact forging was even above theirs, so why would he want to win? It was absolutely impossible. Yi Qingshan took a glance at Yang Kong and Guoyang's pale faces and said faintly, "Young Master Wu, it's not convenient for our Xianwu Pavilion to accept the challenge today. It's not convenient for you to meddle in my business, as long as it's convenient for me. Wu Tianlong sneered, looked left and right, then said with glee, I've always heard that Xianwu Pavilion is not bad, and I've never come in to take a look, and it's really not bad. Don't just stand there. Let's begin. Elder he. Wu Tianlong replied respectfully. He Zun walked out with a similar sneer on his face. Other than the Grand Court, he had never placed these people in his eyes. These people were not qualified to compete with him in artifact forging. He Zun said in disdain, Are you going up one by one? Or do we attack together? The faces of everyone from Xianwu Pavilion darkened. However, no one dared to make a sound. It was because they knew He Zun's skill in smithing that they were not his match. Yi Qingshan said, He Zun, you're too arrogant. He Zun coldly glanced at Yi Qingshan, and said, Right, I am Kwong, what about it? Yi Qingshan's gaze tensed up. He Zun continued to speak, You trash, hurry up, don't waste this old man's time. Wu Tianlong laughed out loud, and said, Did you hear that, trash? I told you to hurry up, don't be so childish. Ha ha ha. Too awesome. When I was crushed in Xianwu Pavilion, I feel so good now that I'm breathing out fiercely again. Yi Qingshan looked at Yang Kong. Yang Kong looked elsewhere, and did not dare to look straight into Yi Qingshan's eyes. Yi Qingshan looked at Guiyang, and Guiyang did the same. Looking at the other high-ranking elder refining, they were all the same, either lowering their heads or looking elsewhere, obviously not wanting to go out and fight. He Zun said with an even more disdainful look on his face, A bunch of trash. Yi Qingshan was heavily enraged, and said, I'll do it. He Zun's eyes glanced to the side as he looked at Yi Qingshan and said, You? Ha ha ha. It was extremely disdainful. In the Xianwu Pavilion, Yi Qingshan's level of artifact forging could only be considered average, there were a few that were stronger than him. For a dignified Xianwu Pavilion like him, even if he were to die, he could not kneel down and die. Yi Qingshan took a step forward, How do we compete? Yang Kong immediately shouted, Yi Qingshan, what do you want to do? How could you be his match with your strength? Guiyang also said, That's right, even if you go up there, you will still lose. Don't embarrass our Xianwu Pavilion. Yi Qingshan self-deprecated, Do we Xianwu Pavilion still have any face? When you were trying to snatch the position of Grand Court, each and every one of you were extremely arrogant. But now, you are all acting like cowards in front of an outsider. There are already people straddling our necks. If you can bear with it, I can't. He Zun. Come on, how do we compete? Yi Qingshan was filled with anger. He Zun smiled faintly and said, Not bad, you have a bit of backbone. This world has only strength, nothing good can come out of it. Finished. He Zun walked to the front of Yang Kong's refining platform, looking at the failed immortal weapon, the idea swam about, and then moved its right hand, releasing its dense true spirit. Rumble. 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 The fire raged, and in an instant, the temperature of the entire yard rose. It was like summer in the middle of winter, and the scorching sun seemed to be hanging over their heads. It made people sweat profusely. The elders were constantly at the back, unable to get close to the furnace. What does he want to do? That's a failed immortal weapon. Could it be that he wants to refine it anew? This is impossible. The clan elders of the Xianwu Pavilion began to discuss with each other. Whether it was the materials or the inscriptions within the immortal weapon, a failed immortal weapon had already been destroyed and could no longer be repaired. Even if it could, the refined weapon would still be unable to reach the level of an immortal weapon. At most, it would just be an ordinary weapon. Yang Kong shook his head and said, Impossible, it's impossible. Just now, it was a weapon that he failed to forge. He understood it better than anyone else. This weapon was already a piece of scrap metal. There was no longer any value in using it, and it was also impossible to refine another immortal weapon. However, He Zun's body seemed to emit a strange energy. Suddenly, buzz. A light whistle sounded and a flame shot out. At this moment, everyone in the yard was shocked. Refining fire. It's the refining fire. He actually has a refining fire? Everyone was emotionally moved, and they were all shocked. The refining fire was a flame created by refining. It was a fire formed from the accumulation of countless years of experience and accumulation of countless years. Other than that, more importantly, he needed talent. An incomparably powerful talent. Even if you could cultivate the refining fire, being unable to control it would only be a waste of your time. It was very obvious that not only was he unable to cultivate refining fire, he was also able to control it perfectly. In the entire Xianwu pavilion, other than the Grand Court, not a single artificer had managed to cultivate the refining fire. This difference. It was obvious at a glance. Yi Qingshan's gaze tensed up. Wu Tianlong didn't use any refining fire, but he knew the shocked expressions of those artificers from Xianwu Pavilion. The corner of his mouth hooked up into a smile. At the same time, Wu Tianlong said to Wu Zhong, who was beside him, "Uncle Zhong, bring some people over and bring out the trash from those East Imperial cities." Wu Zhong quietly withdrew himself. Boom. Boom. He Zun's refining fire roared as it fused into the flames. The material quality of the failed immortal weapon inscription symbol had undergone a qualitative change. This was the power of the refining fire. It can help you perfect to the best of your abilities and maximize your strength. Seeing this scene, Yang Kong's face turned even uglier, because that was the weapon that he failed to refine, and now that he had succeeded, it was as if he had been slapped in his face. It was very hard. Similarly, the pressure on Yi Qingshan was immense. He looked at the immortal weapon that Guiyang had just failed to refine, and didn't know how to attack him. He could only stand there in a daze. There was nothing to be done. His heart felt very uncomfortable. Buzz. With a crisp sound, He-Zun withdrew his aura. Boom. The robe fell off and the fire extinguished. A red immortal weapon was quietly laid on the furnace top. He-Zun laughed. If it wasn't for the fact that the person who started the refining didn't start refining, this immortal weapon could have leveled up by 3 levels. Another slap landed on Yang Kong's face. He had cultivated refining for his entire life, but who would have thought that he would be ruthlessly slapped a few times by this old man? He-Zun coldly glanced at Yang Kong, and then said while looking at Yi Qingshan, "It's your turn." Chapter 2970 Whose territory is this? Chapter 2970 Whose territory is this? When He-Zun took out the refining fire, Yi Qingshan already knew that he did not even have a tenth of He-Zun's ability. The entire Xianwu pavilion was completely crushed by He-Zun alone. This was just like a martial arts competition. An existence whose cultivation was too strong to be surpassed. Everyone looked at the crimson immortal weapon on the furnace. They couldn't possibly compare to it in terms of level. "Let's compete. Let's begin." Wu Tianlong clamored, "Yi Qingshan, didn't you want to compete? To refine it personally, are you an idiot?" Yi Qingshan's face alternated between green and purple. He clenched his fists and gritted his teeth, unable to say a word. Wu Tianlong laughed coldly, and said, "Xianwu Pavilion? Ha ha ha. And for immortal martial arts, change your name to Discarded Martial Pavilion from now on, ha ha ha." Yi Qingshan said solemnly, "Wu Tianlong, you're too presumptuous." Wu Tianlong said, "Apologies, this young master is being impudent, what can you do? Unhappy? Then let's compete, let's fight. He's so scared that he can't move. Yi Qingshan, we have already produced a work of art. If your Xianwu Pavilion is unable to refine it, we will have one. This discarded martial pavilion belongs to my Wu clan." Wu Tianlong laughed complacently, and said coldly, "Since you guys provoked this young master last time, you all should have already thought of today's result." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Tianlong's voice was sinister, and said, "Hurry up and refine them. If you can't, then get out of here." Yi Qingshan was speechless. Not only that, all the artificers in the Xianwu pavilion were speechless. "Ha ha ha. Looks like no one can refine it." Wu Tianlong laughed loudly, and said with a heavy voice, "From today onwards, this Xianwu pavilion will belong to my Wu family. From today onwards, Xianwu Pavilion will change his name to Discarded Martial Pavilion. Ha ha ha." At this moment. Wait. Everyone looked behind Wu Tianlong. Wu Tianlong also turned around, and at this moment, both his eyes immediately sank. His groin was in pain, and his body couldn't help but secretly tremble. The ones who were standing at the door were none other than Long Fei and the rest of the five. Returning from the God's Devil City, Long Fei did not immediately go to see Su Su and the others. He wanted to report to the Xianwu Pavilion first, since he was the only one who survived and returned from so many people. However, he didn't expect to see this scene in the courtyard. Long Fei's mind tightened, and upon seeing Wu Tianlong's face, he immediately understood what was going on. When Yi Qingshan saw Long Fei, he immediately rushed forward and asked, "Brother Long, where is Grand Court?" Everyone fell silent. Even He Zun looked towards Long Fei. If Xianwu Pavilion did not die, then he had no chance of winning. Long Fei revealed an astonished expression, and said, "Didn't Grand Court come back? He should be one step ahead of me, right? Don't you know?" As soon as he finished, He Zun's heart trembled slightly. Wu Tianlong's gaze also suddenly tensed up. Yi Qingshan became excited and asked, "Grand Court isn't dead?" Long Fei said, "Of course I'm not dead. How could such an awesome person like Grand Court be dead?" He was secretly shocked. The news spread really quickly. It's obvious that I am the only one who is alive, but the news has already reached the fairy city. Seems like Wu Tianlong, this piece of trash, came prepared. The hearts of everyone in the Xianwu Pavilion relaxed, as if they had been relieved from a burden. Yi Qingshan immediately said, "I will go and invite Grand Court out." He Zun, didn't you want to compete? Wu Tianlong, even your Wu family wants to annex my Xianwu Pavilion? Come. When the Grand Court comes, one of you will take his life. He let out a heavy breath. He Zun's expression secretly changed. He looked at Wu Tianlong and said with sound transmission, "Young master, if Grand Court is really here, I'm afraid this time." He was afraid. He was a refiner and represented the Wu clan. What Wu Ba guaranteed him was that the Grand Court was already dead, and what she promised him was that she would give half of her benefits to him by annexing the Xianwu Pavilion. That was why he agreed. But if the challenge failed, then his life. It will be here. This was the rule. Thus, he was somewhat afraid. However, Wu Tianlong was not afraid. It was not easy to get this opportunity. He would definitely not give up so easily, and said solemnly, "My father said it, Grand Court is already dead, you don't have to worry." And then, Wu Tianlong sneered, "I'll see how you can get Grand Court out." Yi Qingshan immediately said, "Then you just wait here for me." As he said that, he went to Grand Court's courtyard. At this time, Long Fei took a step forward and said, "Elder Yi, it's better if I go. Traveling with Grand Court for half a month this time will be of great help to my cultivation. I still have a question to ask, I'll go ask him." Yi Qingshan looked at Long Fei, puzzled. At this moment, Wu Tianlong said heavily, "You dog, you want to take this opportunity to escape? Do you think I'll give you a chance?" Chu Qing said, "Big brother Long Fei, is he scolding you?" When Wu Tianlong saw Chu Qing, he was extremely shocked and excited. "Wow, another fairy-like woman, I want this woman." Not waiting for him to finish. Buzz. The sword hummed. Swoosh swoosh. The two sword flowers fell. Ah. Ah. Both of Wu Tianlong's lips were cut off, blood gushing everywhere as he clenched his fists in pain, unable to say a single word. Qin Shuang said coldly, "Since your mouth is that dirty, don't speak anymore. If you dare say another word, I will cut off your tongue." Immediately, the lackey Luo who was next to Wu Tianlong quickly rushed up and bellowed, "You dare to injure young Master Wu today, you will all die. Why don't you see whose territory this is? You guys are done for." Luo Yuan shouted. Wu Tianlong endured the pain and said heavily, "What nonsense are you spouting? Go and kill me." Just then, Wu Bin walked out and said lightly, "Young Master Wu is nothing. This is your territory. I really can't accept it." While they were talking, Wu Bin took out an order badge and looked at the people around him. He stared at Wu Tianlong and asked, "Whose territory is this?" Everyone looked over. In that instant, the faces of those small fries immediately turned pale, their legs trembled, They were so scared that they directly knelt on the ground. Wu Tianlong was also trembling on the inside. His eyes darkened as he muttered, "Immortal Karma, Factory Sect, Disciple." The Wu family also had disciples of the Factory Sect, so he was very familiar with the medallions of the disciples of the Factory Sect. Zhong Xian's face darkened. He Zun's expression also tensed up. It was said that there was a relationship between the Xianwu Pavilion and the Emperor, and it looked like it was true. Wu Tianlong immediately said, "It's Sir Factory Sect, I am very sorry for the bow just now. However, this is a matter between the Wu family and Xianwu Pavilion, Factory Sect can't intervene, right? If we can't win today's refining competition." The corner of Wu Tianlong's eyes twitched, he stared at Long Fei and said, "Xianwu Pavilion is mine, at that time. I want to dismember all of Xianwu Pavilion's people." Chapter 2971, Direct Kneeling. Chapter 2971, Direct Kneeling. Wu Tianlong was very arrogant. It was because of the pain in his crotch, and it was also because of the torment from not being able to get into the body for the past half-month. Even more so because of the Wu clan's strength. A disciple of the Factory Sect. There were people like him in the Wu family as well, and he believed that for someone like Long Fei who came from the East Imperial City, even if they were lucky enough to get together with a disciple from the Factory Sect, they would at most do nothing. His words made Qin Shuang and the others unhappy. So arrogant, Qin Shuang was very unhappy and wanted to attack, but he was stopped by Long Fei. Long Fei said, "I'll take care of my own matters." Then, Long Fei looked at Yi Qingshan and said, "Elder Yi, come with me to invite Grand Court." Suddenly, Yi Qingshan was startled, but immediately agreed. He wanted to know what Long Fei was doing. Wu Tianlong coldly snorted, and said, "Let's see how you will bring out the people from the underworld." He was very calm. He Zun's mood went up and down, and he was a little uneasy. Long Fei and Yi Qingshan left and walked into the courtyard of the Grand Court. Yi Qingshan could no longer suppress the curiosity in his heart and said, "Brother Long, tell me the truth. How is Grand Court?" Huff. Long Fei let out a light breath, and said, "Grand Court might really be dead." "What?" Yi Qingshan's eyes darkened and his body trembled slightly. When Long Fei and Grand Court went out together, perhaps only Long Fei knew the truth. But now that Long Fei had said such a thing, it meant that Grand Court was truly dead. Previously, he didn't believe it, but now, it was like a bolt out of the blue. How could this be? How could this be? Grand Court's martial arts training is also very strong. Yi Qingshan's gaze was a little unfocused, and somewhat desperate. If the Grand Court was not here, then the Xianwu Pavilion would definitely not be able to protect him. Long Fei said, "Tell me what happened outside first, I'll see if I can help you guys." "Help? How? Do you know how to forge artifacts? Do you know anything about artifact forging? You only know how to forge equipment. How can you be better than He Zun?" Yi Qingshan laughed bitterly. "It's useless, the Xianwu Pavilion is hopeless." Long Fei was an ordinary warrior from the East Imperial City. His heart was filled with the dream of entering the Factory Sect, but, to the people of East Imperial City, this was just a dream. How could such a person understand refining? Long Fei slightly said, "It's just a refining competition, right? Refining. Refining." Long Fei opened up the system to check the refining techniques. His heart tensed up. It's still level 1. It's impossible to refine an immortal weapon. Yi Qingshan exhaled a long breath, and said, "Brother Long, your friend is still in the courtyard over there. Take advantage of Wu Tianlong's presence, and quickly leave. The further the better. Don't ever come back, and don't dream of entering the Factory Sect, because that's impossible." While they were talking, Yi Qingshan carried his disappointment and was about to leave the small courtyard. He grew up in the Xianwu Pavilion, and this place was his home. Even if he died, he would die here. He had already given up all hope. As Yi Qingshan walked out of the courtyard, his mind was still thinking about how to refine an immortal weapon. Are there any scrolls that can instantly raise the refining techniques? The merchant shop. He couldn't find it. Black and white, I want to save Xianwu Pavilion. Do you have a way to help me increase my refining realm? Similarly, Monochrome did not respond either. Ancient alchemy. Long Fei thought about this, but, as expected, if he were to use the ancient alchemy, the god's tribes and curse mark on his body would appear. This was not the East Imperial City. The people of East Imperial City did not know what the god's tribes were. But there must be a lot of people here who know, and in front of so many people. The risk was too great. Moreover, even if Long Fei were to use the ancient alchemy, he might not even be able to refine an immortal weapon that was even stronger than He Zun. After all, his refining techniques was stuck at Zhenwu continent. Universal Realm had never studied the refining techniques before. That won't do either. What should I do? Zhen Shulong's sword. Do you have a way? Long Fei asked, then laughed bitterly. You are only a sword, how do you know what to do? Can the 18 archaic demons of the Sealess be done? Their weapons are all in the armguard, so even if they can refine immortal weapons, how are they to let them out and refine them? I guess I'm going crazy. Long Fei laughed bitterly. He wanted to help Xianwu Pavilion. Xianwu Pavilion had saved him before. If not for the Xianwu Pavilion, he would not have obtained the Zhen Shulong sword, nor would he have obtained the big Master Guard arm, much less No Chu Qing and the others. Now that he was dead, Long Fei would definitely not let the Xianwu Pavilion just disappear like that. He had to protect this place. At this time, the Zhen Shulong sword suddenly said, Master, last time in the Seal Valley, you represented the Xianwu Pavilion, so this time you can as well. Hey! Suddenly, Long Fei had a flash of inspiration. That's right, no one has ever seen Grand Court's appearance before. If I can put on my mask, who can prove that I'm not Grand Court? As long as the Grand Court appeared, everyone would be shocked. Wu Tianlong would definitely be shocked. If not, Long Fei's heart tightened, and subconsciously touched the god's tribe's curse mark that was hidden in his chest. Since Grand Court is dead, I can't ignore him. And then, Long Fei changed into the clothes and mask that he had worn last time to represent Grand Court. Following that, from afar, he heard someone shouting, the Grand Court is here. He leisurely walked out. Yi Qingshan had already walked to refining platform. Humph, you? Your Grand Court won't be able to come out, right? Ha ha ha. I knew it. How could a dead man come out? Wu Tianlong laughed proudly. He was determined to win this competition. He Zun secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Just when they were feeling proud, a voice came from afar, Grand Court is here. He Zun's heart sank, and he became unsteady on his feet. Wu Tianlong's pupils also secretly tightened. Impossible. Joy filled the faces of all the elders in the entire Xianwu Pavilion. Only Yi Qingshan's gaze carried despair. Long Fei walked into the backyard. Everyone looked over. Grand Court. It's really the Grand Court. Ha ha ha. He Zun, let's see how you can continue being so arrogant. I knew that nothing would happen to Grand Court. The elders of the Xianwu Pavilion all started to clamor in excitement. He Zun's face turned sinister as he looked at him. However, Wu Tianlong laughed coldly and said, if you wear a mask, these clothes will be the Grand Court. Then Laozi is still your ancestor. It's not a competition of appearance, it's a competition of weapon crafting. He was also secretly nervous in his heart. If something were to happen to He Zun, his father would definitely not spare him. He could only continue to gamble. Long Fei walked to the front of the refining platform, and stared at the 2 pages as he said, forging, right? Then today I will let you know what refining is. Her voice was gloomy. It was hard to tell that it was said by a young man in his early 20s. Yi Qingshan was also puzzled. At this moment, Long Fei decided to take the risk, and with a thought, he shouted, ancient alchemy. He had to help. Just as he was about to use the ancient alchemy, he felt a scorching pain in his chest. Buzz. The 7-colored refining fire suddenly rushed out from the god's design token. It was exceptionally strong and dazzling, and everyone was captivated by the 7-colored refining fire. At this moment, plop. He Zun immediately knelt down. Chapter 2972 Dead Dog. Chapter 2972 Dead Dog Plop. With a crisp sound, the kneecap was about to kneel down and shatter into pieces. Tighter. Bam. This time, a piece of limestone on the ground shattered. Grand Court, I was wrong. I take back my challenge. I withdraw my challenge. Hizun pleaded for mercy. Many people did not move, but all the artificers in the Xianwu pavilion knew that the refining fire that Long Fei released was of a high level, as high as a few floors. An existence that could crush Hizun 100 times over. Actually, there was no one who understood the refining fire more than Hizun. Cultivating the refining fire required countless of years of accumulation, as well as an incomparably strong talent in artifact forging. The rainbow flame was a level he had never seen before. He wasn't a match at all. If Long Fei refined an immortal weapon, then he would lose for sure. The consequences of failing in the challenge was to keep his life. He didn't want to die. Therefore, when Hizun saw the seven-colored flame, he instantly begged for forgiveness. Yi Qingshan, who was standing beside Long Fei, tensed up. Seeing the seven-colored fire, he froze, his mouth opened wide as if he was about to put an egg inside it to look at the Grand Court who was wearing a mask. The people from the Xianwu pavilion all vented out their resentment. Hizun, aren't you being arrogant? What's your refining techniques? Not even a fart in front of us Grand Court. You want to annex our Xianwu pavilion? Humph. All of them were enraged. Wu Tianlong did not make a move as he looked at Hizun, who was kneeling on the ground, with contempt in his heart. However, he did not dare to easily offend him and said, Elder He, the challenge of artifact forging is not over yet, it's not like we've lost. Hizun shouted angrily, shut up. Wu Tianlong trembled slightly, his eyes had a look of displeasure. Hizun said, if I want to challenge, you go challenge, I will not challenge again, I will not court death. And then, Hizun continued to beg for forgiveness. Grand Court, I was blind, that's why I came here to challenge you. I was wrong, please give me a chance. I will immediately leave the Wu family, leave the fairy city, I beg you, please give me a way out. If he failed the challenge, then he would have to pay the price. Hizun did not want to die. Long Fei retracted his breath, Hizun's sudden kowtow surprised him, and he was shocked in his heart. God's design Attic's refining fire is truly impressive. The moment it was summoned, it terrified Hizun. Long Fei said in a gloomy voice, you know your wrongs? Just because you said that you know you're wrong, that's all? How could there be such a good thing in the world? Hizun's gaze tightened and his body trembled faintly as he said, Grand Court, as long as you are willing to spare my life, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Long Fei rolled his eyes slightly, refining fire. Hizun's gaze darkened as he said, this, Grand Court, this is a refining fire that I had to use an entire 50 years to cultivate. You, either leave your life behind. Either hand over the refining fire. Long Fei said coldly. At the same time, the seven-colored fire surged again, and the Zhenshulong sword's sword chime shook. Buzz. The yard was filled with powerful sword intent. His mind shook, and his sea of consciousness began to stir. Not only was Grand Court's refining realm extremely high, his cultivation was also unfathomably deep. Hizun's cultivation was merely in the royal realm, and was simply not his opponent. Hizun gritted his teeth. In front of his life and refining fire, he still chose the former. The idea moved, and its body trembled. A series of rumbling sounds echoed within his body. Then, Hizun spat out a mouthful of fresh blood as a refining fire with fresh blood on the palm of his right hand slowly floated into the air. Refining fire was the life of a refiner. If he were to pull it out of his body, it could be said that he would never be able to forge a weapon in his entire life. However, compared to his life, the refining fire was not that important. Long Fei's eyes moved slightly, and said, Yi Qingshan, bring it over. Yi Qingshan trembled, but he still couldn't react in the slightest. He walked up to the refining fire in a stiff and wooden manner and carefully received it. Refining fire was the dream of every artificer. Long Fei said indifferently, I'll reward you with this. Yi Qingshan's gaze tensed up, and was extremely surprised. Looking at Long Fei, he did not know what to say in his heart. The elders of the Xianwu pavilion also had faces of shock. Especially Yang Kong and Guo Yang, the two of them have the oldest qualifications, but the Grand Court didn't even glance at them, and directly gifted the refining fire to Yi Qingshan. Envy and jealousy filled their eyes. Zun said solemnly, "Thank you, Grand Court, for not killing me." And then Zun turned and left. Wu Tianlong was a little stupefied when he saw Zun's series of operations. Elder He. As he spoke, he was about to follow her out. However, Long Fei said coldly, "Did I let you go?" Wu Bin and Zhang Yuanhang stepped forward and stopped Wu Tianlong. "Did you hear that? I didn't ask you to leave yet." Wu Tianlong's eyes turned sinister. "Get out of the way, the disciples of Factory Sect are amazing. My two uncles are also in Factory Sect, and they're even in charge of everything. If you don't want to cause trouble, then scram to the side." The two listened in annoyance. Wu Bin was even more infuriated by Zhongxian's actions, and he immediately sent a kick towards Zhongxian. Bam! What cultivation did Wu Tianlong have? It was just the Soul Realm, and he had been sent flying 5 to 6 meters by the Royal Realm's kick, his entire body directly kneeling on the ground. His abdomen was in great pain, as he screamed miserably. "It hurts. I'm going to die. Kill them. Kill them all." The minions beside him quickly dashed towards Wu Bin. All of them looked like fiends. However, Wu Bin said coldly, "Whoever comes up will die." Just one sentence was enough to scare them away, so much so that they didn't dare make a move on him. "Ah!" Wu Tianlong painfully crawled up from the ground and said, You, I will definitely kill you." Wu Bin suddenly flickered. Bam! Another kick landed on Wu Tianlong's mouth, causing him to immediately spurt out blood. "A trash like you want to kill us?" Wu Tianlong smashed onto the ground heavily. It was incomparably painful. But he couldn't resist at all. Long Fei asked coldly, "How did you know about the news of Grand Court's death?" Wu Tianlong's face was pale white. He stared at Long Fei and laughed sinisterly. "Your voice is. Ha ha ha. You aren't Grand Court at all. You are the cripple from East Imperial City." Before he could say the word thing, Wu Bin turned around and kicked again. Bam! Wu Tianlong flew up again and let out a roar like a pig being butchered. Wu Bin said coldly, "If you say another word, I will make your mouth grow to the back of your head." Boom! It fell down like a dead dog. Chapter 2973 A Real Devil Sect. Chapter 2973 A Real Devil Sect. Boom! He fell from the sky, causing the ground to shake. This time, Wu Tianlong didn't even have time to scream, and directly fainted. Just at this time, Wu Zhong ran into the courtyard covered in dust. Seeing that Wu Tianlong had fainted, the anger in his heart surged. But his heart once again tensed up when he saw the people in the courtyard. "Let's go," Wu Zhong said in a heavy voice. Long Fei asked coldly, "Go? Did I let you go?" He wanted to know why the Wu family was so sure that the Grand Court was dead. Other than the only ones who knew about this, there was another power that knew about it. That was the Devil Sect. Could it be that the Wu family had someone from the Devil Sect? If that was the case, then the Wu clan would be in big trouble. Wu Zhong's eyes turned sinister as he said coldly, "Grand Court, this time it's our Wu family that has fallen, but you must understand our Wu family's power in Fairy City. You have people in the Factory Sect, and the Wu family has people as well. If you want to die, it is unknown who will live and who will die," Wu Zhong said fiercely. Qin Shuang said coldly, "So arrogant." Wu Zhong coldly glanced at Qin Shuang and said, "If you have the strength, then it's not called arrogant." Qin Shuang's mouth hooked up and said, "Strength? This is really awesome." He was annoyed. Qin Shuang was going to attack. However, Long Fei's eyes moved and said, "Just tell me, how did your Wu family find out about the news of Grand Court's death?" Wu Zhong sneered, "What should I say?" Long Fei said, "If you don't want to say it, then stay here." Wu Zhong's eyes turned sinister and said solemnly, "You dare?" Long Fei said, There is nothing in this world that I do not dare to do. Yi Qingshan and the Xianwu Pavilion's refiners were slightly startled. They could not understand Long Fei. The previous Grand Court would definitely not do such a thing. Moreover, compared to the Wu family, the Xianwu Pavilion was still lacking a lot in strength. Furthermore, the Xianwu Pavilion was an artificer, so their martial arts training was not strong. The Wu clan was different. He was from the martial arts training family. If it was a competition of force, the Xianwu Pavilion had no chance of winning at all, and the Wu family wanted the patriarch of the Emperor Strongman, Wu Ba. Wu Zhong stared deadly at Long Fei. Suddenly, the aura on Wu Zhong's body suddenly surged. Boom! The power of the Emperor Peak realm came crashing out. Its fighting strength was overpowering. Qin Shuang's gaze tensed up. At this time, everyone was going to fight for Wu Zhong, but he suddenly grabbed the unconscious Wu Qianlong's clothes and flicked his body. Boom! He jumped straight into the air. This is bad. His trying to escape, Qin Shuang's voice sunk. Long Fei moved. Escape? The Zhenshulong sword instantly flew out. Boom! A shadow flashed in the sky as a sword pierced through his thigh. The true spirit on his body became chaotic as he fell from the sky. However, Wu Zhong struck his palm onto Wu Qianlong's back and shouted, "Sky Dragon, let's go." It was also at this time. A small rocket flew out and exploded in the sky. Boom! At the Wu residence. Wu Ba revealed a faint smile and said, "Then my son will depend more on you too for this year's assessment." Two of the factory sect's stewards faintly smiled. Looking at the two silver shining divine treasures on the table, he revealed a satisfied smile and said, "Patriarch Wu, don't worry, junior brother Wu Wei had already said this in the factory sect. We will definitely think of a way to let the two young masters of the Wu family enter the factory sect in their higher ranks, not to mention that the Wu family's warriors have great innate talent. Entering the factory sect is a very easy and simple matter." Ha ha ha. The three of them laughed at the same time. At this moment, the sky shook slightly. A disciple ran in anxiously and said, reporting to Patriarch, "There is a distress signal from the direction of Xianwu Pavilion." Wu Ba frowned. "Something has happened?" Two of the factory sect stewards said, "Brother Wu, do you need any help?" Wu Ba said, "No need to trouble the two masters. I, Wu, can solve such a small problem. Someone, come. Sending you off, my lords." Wu Ba was very calm and did not panic, because he had to appear calm and collected in front of the people from the factory sect. The calmer he was, the more he would reveal the true abilities of the Wu family. The two stewards sent him out. Wu Ba's face sank and immediately asked, "What happened?" Disciple doesn't know. Maybe something happened to young master. Wu Ba's eyes darkened. "Useless trash, you couldn't even do anything. I really don't know how the Wu family could produce such a useless trash like you." He hated not being able to meet his expectations. However, Wu Ba quickly reacted and said, "Go call Wu Ying out and control those trash from East Imperial City. Since Xianwu Pavilion wants to protect them, then they have a certain amount of value." "Yes, sir." And then, Wu Ba exhaled deeply and looked into the distance. With a single step, he walked out of the hall. In that instant, roar! An extremely fierce beast rushed out of thin air and dragged Wu Ba into the air. He disappeared into the sky almost instantaneously. Xianwu Pavilion. Long Fei never thought that on the verge of life and death, Wu Zhong would not go and defend against the Zhenshulong sword, but instead used his final strength to send Wu Qianlong flying. This greatly surprised him. However, Long Fei was not worried. Looking at Wu Zhong, who was on the ground, Long Fei said, "You are really tenacious." Wu Zhong sneered, "Brat, you're about to die yet you don't know." Long Fei replied, "You're already like this, and you're still saying that I'm going to die. Don't you think that's funny? And you think you can send that trash, Wu Qianlong, away? You think he can escape? In your dreams." Long Fei moved his idea. In the sky, the Zhenshulong sword stabbed into Wu Qianlong's bones and flew into the air. Wu Zhong's pupils suddenly contracted, and he roared loudly, "Brat, you dared to hurt him, you will definitely die a miserable death." Long Fei said, A lot of people have told me these words before, it's just that the people who said them are already dead, and I'm still living quite well. Bam! The Genshulong sword slightly moved. Wu Tianlong fell from the sky. Long Fei stepped right on top of Wu Tianlong's head, looked at him and said, "Can you tell me how you found out?" Wu Zhong's eyes were full of hatred. Long Fei was not anxious at all. "Seems like you don't want to say it." Buzz! The Genshulong sword moved, and directly floated between Wu Tianlong's eyebrows. Long Fei moved. The Genshulong sword suddenly flew up, and then, heavily stabbed downwards between Wu Tianlong's eyebrows. Wu Zhong's eyes were wide opened as he said anxiously, I'll say. Long Fei smiled faintly and said, "Is that right?" Sweat rolled down Wu Zhong's forehead as his breathing quickened, and he said, "It's Devil Sect, a message from Devil Sect." As soon as he finished, Qin Shuang and the rest tensed up. Long Fei's lips curved up. Damn, it really is Devil Sect. Chapter 2974. Do you want to exterminate your sect? Chapter 2974. Do you want to exterminate your sect? Actually, Long Fei only wanted to know one reason behind the news: killing Devil Sect to level up. One level 2. The leveling up in the Seal Valley that night was simply too great. It was as though he had eaten a meal of dazzling spring. It was so pleasurable that he could not stop. Then again, if the Wu family was related to the Devil Sect, then they could do whatever they wanted. All right, I've already said it out loud, can you let us go now? Wu Zhong said solemnly. The news that came from the Devil Sect must not be spread out. All these people are going to die. However, he had to go back to the Wu family now. He had to go back. Long Fei smiled. What do you think? Wu Zhong's eyes became tight, and said, You don't mean what you say. What do you want to do? Nothing. Just trying to make you experience. Long Fei's lips curled up, his killing intent moved. His goal had been achieved, so he could gather experience now. Long Fei never thought of letting Wu Zhong and Wu Tianlong go. Yi Qingshan immediately took a step forward, grabbed Long Fei's hand, and gently shook his head. We cannot kill him. Yang Kong and Guo Yang also walked up and said, Grand Court, you can't kill them. We can't afford to offend the Wu family. The Wu family was very powerful. The Xianwu Pavilion was only a small place that sold weapons. Once the Wu family was killed, the Xianwu Pavilion would no longer be able to stand firm in the fairy city. However, they don't understand. Even if they did not kill him, the Wu family would not let Xianwu Pavilion off the hook. Today's challenge speaks for itself. Just as Long Fei was about to say these, he suddenly shouted, Roar! Everyone raised their heads. Wu Ba's mount, a mountain demon beast of the 8th level. Wu Ba is here. Emperor Strongman, patriarch of the Wu family. Roar! With another roar, the gigantic demonic beast swooped down. Wu Ba, who was on its back, stared at the courtyard, and frowned when he saw the half-dead Wu Tianlong on the ground. Wu Tianlong didn't know how to play anymore, how to become a popinjay, how to stir up trouble everywhere, however. He was a member of the Wu family, all his sons. Seeing his own son being abused like this, Wu Ba's anger surged. Rumble. A series of crushing blows. The might of the Emperor Palace gushed forth like a tidal wave. Poochie. 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 A few of Xianwu Pavilion's servants and warriors who had low cultivation instantly knelt on the ground, blood continuously spraying out from their mouths. Those elders also had pale faces, and their bodies were unshakable, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Moreover, as Wu Ba got closer and closer to them, the pressure on them became heavier and heavier. Phut! One of the elders fell to the ground, bleeding from his 7 orifices. Plop! Another elder fell down, while the other waiters' heads exploded one after another. Their consciousness couldn't withstand such a strong impact. Long Fei was also in great pain. Chu Qing was having a hard time. Long Fei was in a bad mood. Fuck. The attack that Laozi hates the most is coercion. He waved his right hand and the soul-breaking whip appeared in his grasp. His true soul surged. The spirit-breaking whip continued to lash out. Pa! Pa, Pa! Boundless red light flashed. The might of the Emperor realm in the sky shattered one by one as it was completely destroyed by the power of the god-slaying whip. The expressions of everyone in the courtyard slightly improved. Break my pressure? Humph. Wu Ba let out a heavy snort, and did not continue to release any more pressure. His entire body transformed into a ball of black shadows, and landed heavily. Bang, bang, bang. The power of the divine striking whip was shattered by his single punch. Long Fei was so shocked that he almost fell off. His arm went numb. However, Long Fei reacted quickly and landed beside Wu Tianlong, lifting him up. Buzz. Wu Ba's eyes were fixed on Long Fei, and at the moment, he did not know who the person under the mask was, so he thought it was Grand Court. Wu Ba was secretly shocked. Could it be that the news is fake? That's impossible. This was not the time to be thinking about all these. Wu Ba said lightly, Grand Court, my son is being reckless today. He was only challenging your pavilion as a child playing around, don't take him seriously. Now that you've already fought, he should be let go, right? Easily stated. However, there was a trace of anger in his words. Wu Zhong immediately said, Big brother, Sky Dragon is about to die. Wu Ba's gaze tensed up, and he said, Grand Court, release my son, and in the future, the Wu family and Xian Wu pavilion will not cause trouble. Yi Qingshan also said, Grand Court, let young Master Wu go. While they were talking, Yi Qingshan continuously shot Long Fei meaningful glances, telling him not to be impulsive, and not to be impulsive. Xian Wu pavilion could not afford to offend the Wu family. The Wu family already had 2 disciples in the factory sect, and this year's assessment of the Wu family was even more determined. Once there were any more disciples entering the factory sect, the Wu family's power would be even greater. Blood dripped from Wu Tianlong's mouth. He was incredibly weak as he said darkly, You, this trash, cannot kill me, haha. Wu Ba shouted, Shut up. Then, Wu Ba looked at Long Fei. With a flip of his right hand, a top-grade immortal weapon appeared. He said, I know that Grand Court likes swords, so I will treat this as me replacing my son to apologize. Yang Kong also said solemnly, Grand Court, since even Patriarch Wu is acting this way, then let's just forget about it. Guoyang said, a lot of enemies do not equal a lot of friends. There must have been a misunderstanding in the past. Patriarch Wu has already made a promise, forget it. None of the blacksmiths here wanted to offend the Wu clan. It was because they were well aware of the Wu clan's influence. The people from the Xian Wu pavilion were advising Long Fei. However, Chu Qing and the others were very calm, there was not even the slightest bit of fear in their eyes. Long Fei slightly said, What if I don't release him? Wu Ba's gaze tensed up, and the aura around his body suddenly changed. He said indifferently, Grand Court, you better release him, otherwise, I'm sure that Fairy City will not be able to visit this place again within 3 days. Long Fei felt unwell in his heart. The meat that reached his mouth was gone just like that. However, despite being in a bad mood, Grand Court was already dead. Xian Wu Pavilion was his hard work and effort, Long Fei could not destroy it. Huff! Long Fei's heart loosened, his hand moved, and Wu Tianlong tumbled to the ground, then said indifferently, Patriarch Wu, I will release him, but please remember what you have said. In addition, I have to remind you. Don't provoke me anymore. Otherwise, I can make your Wu clan disappear from this world in less than a day. I'll do it. Competing ruthlessly? Long Fei is fiercer than anyone else. Wu Ba's eyes slightly narrowed, as he looked seriously into Long Fei's eyes. Then, he slowly propped Wu Tianlong up and coldly said, Let's go. Wu Zhong and the small fries quickly withdrew themselves from the courtyard. Yi Qingshan and the equipment forgers from the Immortal Destiny Pavilion let out a heavy sigh as if they had received an amnesty. Yi Qingshan especially said while looking at Long Fei, Thank you, Grand Court. The Wu clan is too strong. If we fight, we have no chance of winning. Not waiting for him to finish. At the entrance of the courtyard, a person whose entire body was covered in blood crawled in. Long Fei's expression tensed up, and immediately recognized him. Canon Tan De Pao endured the pain and said, Boss, Su Su and Lan Mai were taken away. In that instant, Long Fei's killing intent erupted like a volcano. Wu family, King want to exterminate your sect. Chapter 2975, Killing Intent Filled the Sky. Chapter 2975, Killing Intent Filled the Sky. They had just said that they would not interfere with the river, yet they started attacking. The flames of anger in Long Fei's heart immediately billowed. He could not resist it at all. Actually, when they started again, Wu Zhong had already made his move, but it was just that. He did not know that Tan De Pao and the others were a little too strong for him to handle. The failure ended. However, the second time, the strength of the people who came was completely different. Tan De Pao didn't manage to defend at all. Boss, I'm sorry, it's all because I was useless and couldn't protect sister-in-law. Tan De Pao blamed himself in his heart. Boss. Yang Kong could hear something amiss in his tone. Guo Yang couldn't help but ask, Grand Court, you're his boss? They did not remember Long Fei's voice, but Tan De Pao knew it very clearly, and the only one who called him Canon was Long Fei. Yi Qingshan looked at Long Fei with narrowed eyes. Long Fei took off his mask. Everyone's gaze tensed up. You. Aren't you the brat from East Imperial City? You dare to pretend to be Grand Court, you have guts. Men, take him down. Yang Kong replied heavily. Immediately, several heavy disciples surrounded Long Fei. Yi Qingshan followed with a heavy shout. Wait, Qin Shuang said coldly, let's see who dares to touch him. Instantly, Zheng Yuanhang also stood beside Long Fei and protected him with his guards. Yang Kong's eyes darkened, and said, I was wondering why Grand Court was acting so weird today, so it turns out you're pretending. Kid, what exactly are you planning? Long Fei did not have the time to bother with him. He was currently filled with rage as he stared at the two disciples blocking his way and shouted, Scram. Guo Yang said in a heavy voice, don't let him leave. If you don't explain everything clearly, then don't even think about leaving. Where did Grand Court go? Anger. It was burning. Yi Qingshan said straightforwardly, I was the one who let him pretend to be the Grand Court. If not for him, would you guys still be alive here? You can still shout and drink like that. He was the one who saved us, the Xianwu Pavilion. Everyone shivered. Chu Qing said indifferently, if it were not for him, you all would have died long ago. If not for him, do you think your Wu family would even be able to win against you all in smithing? Is your martial arts more powerful than the Wu family? Don't you know shame? Yang Kong and Guo Yang's faces burned. Yang Kong said, I do need to thank him for saving our Xianwu Pavilion, but he almost brought Xianwu Pavilion into the abyss as well. If not for us persuading him to go to war with the Wu family, we would have still died. And, brat, I don't care what your goal is, and I don't care what enmity you have with the Wu family. From now on, you have nothing to do with our Xianwu Pavilion. Now, I order you, get out of here. Obviously, Yang Kong did not want to offend the Wu family. At this time, had better cut through their relationship quickly, so as to not drag Xianwu Pavilion down with him when the time comes. Guo Yang also agreed, Elder Yang is right, please leave now. Get out. Brat, did you hear that? I told you to get the hell out of here. Are you deaf? If you stay here, you will only harm our Xianwu Pavilion. Scram. Many elders of Xianwu Pavilion all shouted in anger. Qin Shuang's face was extremely ugly. According to his temper, he would have already attacked. Chu Qing was also very unhappy. Wu Bin immediately said, Brother Long, should we teach them a lesson? This bunch of cowards don't know how to save. Long Fei was very angry in his heart. However, right now, he did not have the time to care about Xianwu Pavilion. Since the danger to Xianwu Pavilion had already been resolved, there was no need for him to stay here any longer. The only thing that caused him to linger in Xianwu Pavilion was the Sword of War God in the secret room. However, there was no need to rush with the sword. Long Fei turned around and said coldly, I'll be back. Finished. Long Fei supported Tan De Pao as he walked out. Qin Shuang and the others withdrew their swords and followed Long Fei out. Yi Qingshan wanted to stop him, But he knew that it was impossible for him to stop him alone, but he still ran out. Brother Long, please don't go to the Wu clan. The Wu family is now a trap. If you go, you will just be courting death. Don't go. Yi Qingshan started to worry. However, Long Fei did not pay attention to him, nor did he look back. Not going to the Wu clan? If he did not overturn the Wu family's 18 generations of ancestors, he would not be called Long Fei at the Wu residence. What did you say? Isn't that Xian Wu Pavilion? Wu Ba was startled. He recalled what happened in the backyard of Xian Wu Pavilion and was secretly shocked in his heart. Who is he then? Wu Zhong said. Tianlong said he's that brat from East Imperial City. What's his name? Long Fei. Wu Ba was even more shocked in his heart. A brat from a mere trashland actually had such a strong power, breaking my pressure without even being able to react. It's really rare for him to not react at all. See you suddenly. Wu Ba thought of something and said, was it him and Xian Wu Pavilion who participated in the God's Design Attics Appreciation Assembly last time? Wu Zhong nodded. Yes. Wu Ba's mind shook, his eyes shone with a sinister light. It's him. Then Wu Ba didn't even think as he quickly walked out of the hall. Soon, they arrived at a secret room. Send a message to my lord. He's been found. It's in Fairy City. Within the secret room, a pair of dark red eyes slightly moved as a low and deep voice sounded, as you command. Wu Ba was excited in his heart. Hey. This time, our Wu family will have another heavenly treasure. Devil Sex prizes have always been the best. Ha ha ha. I can't believe it. He really gave me a huge gift. Our Wu clan will definitely become even more powerful in the future. At this time. Ah. Pain. Pain. Wu Tianlong howled like a pig above the Wu household. Wu Ba's brows tightened, and let out a deep sigh. Wu Ying quietly landed behind Wu Ba and said, Big brother, we caught 2 women and brought them back. One of them ran away. One of them ran away. Wu Ba frowned. Wu Ying said, these 3 are a bit special. They all have a set of special divine treasure battle clothes with them. Their defense is extremely strong, but they were still broken by me. Now that he thought about it, he was still astonished. He had never seen such armor before. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation was much higher than theirs, it would be really difficult to deal with them. Just like Wu Zhong, the cultivation of the royal realm could not handle it. The 2 women have been brought to Sky Dragon's room. Wu Ying said faintly. Wu Ba nodded his head. I understand. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud sound was heard from the front gate of the Wu clan. A youth. A sword hung by his side. The sword hums wreaked havoc, engulfing the entire Wu clan. The weapons on the mansion started to tremble uncontrollably. At this moment, killing intent filled the sky. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.